The blonde girl sat on her knees. She screamed that she did not kill her husband, but no one believed her words. The courtroom where it all happened was like a stage that had been created to prove her crime. The man pointed at the girl and shouted that she had talked about her plans to deal with her husband in order to meet him again. Another man, folding his arms across his chest, said that Ines was always dissatisfied with her husband. Another man, putting his hand to his chest, asked whether the fact that he knew about her small mole on her thigh would be considered evidence. In addition to the men who insisted that she was a harlot, a shopkeeper appeared who said that the girl had bought butter in his shop that day. The woman said that she had seen Ines and her husband climbing the mountain together. The next witness told how late in the evening the girl came down from the mountain completely alone. All the witnesses proved that she was a criminal, but the girl could not understand why everyone was lying. The couple smiled happily at each other, sitting in a clearing in the rays of the bright sun. The girl did not kill her husband. The girl, who was bent over on the floor, was pulled out of her thoughts by the name of Ines Benoa. The girl continued to scream furiously. No, she would never do that. In conclusion, the man said that the accused not only burned her husband's body, but also showed a vicious character by denying it. The judge's gavel banged, rendering the final verdict. The Holy Court, under the auspices of the water goddess Hecrasia, sentenced the girl to 30 years in Romfield. There were cries around the girl, people wishing her to die, saying that the girl was a dirty bitch, on whom it was a pity to waste even rotten food. They kept chanting that she was completely shameless, that she had tormented her husband to get involved with other men, that she had done something like that, and now she was pretending that she knew nothing. This is how the girl ended up in dark and gloomy Romfield, a place where blood was soaked into the walls, a place that became hell for the girl. From that moment on, they had to eat food thrown to the prisoners like dogs. The girl's body ached and languished constantly from the backbreaking labor. Everyone was trembling with fear in the face of absolute power, and where the soul was dying, no longer able to feel anything. The girl lay motionless on the floor of the cell, like a broken doll, but in her thoughts, she screamed that she had to cling to life, despite the endless hellish days. And so the days passed, until 10 years had passed, and Ines learned something that changed her life. The newspapers published news that, by the will of the new emperor who had ascended the throne, all criminals were being set free. The exhausted girl was ordered to accept the emperor's order. Inessa stood in the darkness of the room, illuminated only by a strip of light. The girl approached the open door step by step. The girl, unaccustomed to the light, squinted and covered her face with her hand. She was given freedom. The exhausted girl turned around when her name was called. One of the guards handed the girl a letter, saying that a woman who called herself her servant had tearfully asked him to deliver it. The girl took the letter hesitantly and distrustfully, asking about it. She thanked Homer, who bowed his head for his concern. Leaving the building, she said uncertainly that she would leave from here. Ines looked at the letter in her hands, smiling sadly. Unfolding the letter and looking at the familiar handwriting, the girl realized that Suzanne had not forgotten her. She began to read the letter impatiently. She was interested in what they had written to her. Running her eyes over the written lines, the girl's eyes widened and the smile disappeared from her face. There was no good news in the letter. The first blow to the girl was the news of the death of her beloved mother. The next terrible blow was the news that her entire family had fallen. The girl was finished off by the news that her father, unable to bear everything that was happening, committed suicide. As soon as she got out of one hell, another one began, as if someone was waiting for it. The girl stood motionless, tormented by the thought that everyone died because of her. The girl had no face. It was as if she did not see anything around her. Now she was left alone. She had nowhere to return to later. The girl's eyes were burning with the green light of despair. Only one thought was beating in her head, displacing all others. She killed everyone. Everyone died because of her. She was left alone, with nowhere to return to. These thoughts were constantly repeated in her head. The girl could not bear it, sat down and clasped her head in her hands. The pain was so unbearable that the girl could no longer breathe and grabbed her throat with her hand. The girl fell, leaning on her hands. There was too much noise around her. Realizing that she wanted to get out of here as quickly as possible, the girl got to her feet and ran as fast as she could. Ines ran towards the forest, thoughts continuing to torment her, despite the girl's request to stop. The girl ran, not paying attention to the branches that she encountered along the way, which hit her body. Her eyes were full of pain and madness, and her mouth was open in a silent scream. The girl ran without stopping in the darkness of the forest until a clearing appeared in her path. Raising her head up, the girl continued to look at the light. Staring at the light, the girl continued to run, and not noticing the tree root, fell, tripping over it. She screamed in pain and fell to the cold ground. Trembling with suppressed emotions, Ines stared ahead without looking away. The girl's eyes widened. She was stunned by what she saw. Sitting on my knees, I looked at the beautiful view. The crystal river sparkled in the rays of the bright, warm sun. The river splashed merrily, and the sound of the splash interrupted the girl's thoughts. She was incredibly exhausted and looked very out of place against the backdrop of the beautiful view. Without taking her eyes off the river, Ines rose from her knees. Continuing to tremble, the girl began to approach the river as if made of wood, guided by only one thought. Having reached the shore, I began to enter the water, thinking that this could be where it all ends. The girl thought about what Mrs. Hecrasia said, that those who want too much will end up empty-handed. With her arms outstretched, Ines continued further and further into the depths of the river. Entering the water, she began to smile, again replaying the lady's words in her head. The next steps turned out to be the last, and the ground disappeared from under the girl's feet. After which she began to drown, and at some point she involuntarily covered her mouth with her hands, realizing what she was doing. Ayn first asked herself why she did it. Suddenly she realized that there was no more air. She needed to breathe. The girl involuntarily opened her mouth and began to choke on the water, thinking about what she had endured for 10 years in a terrible prison. The girl's gaze began to blur. She asked herself if she was really going to die like this. As soon as she left, she could not have a more unfortunate fate. She stretched her arms up, thinking that if anyone would stretch out their hand and offer to walk 10 steps, she would give them everything she had. The girl thought that the goddess was wrong. Despite the fact that she was ready to give everything she had when she extended her hand, no one would extend their hand to her. Closing her eyes in helplessness, the unfortunate woman continued to drown with her hands raised up. Suddenly, someone's hand grabbed her wrist with all its strength. The girl was pulled with all her might upward, towards the air and towards life. This assistant turned out to be a man who pressed his lips to the girl's with all his might, giving her life-giving air. The girl opened her eyes wide, breathing in the air she so desperately needed. The next thing Ines saw was a bright sky with white clouds. She lay on the ground, breathing feverishly. She could not come to her senses. The only thought that came into her head was that she would give everything she had to the person who extended his hand to her and offered to take 10 steps. Before her stood her savior, a handsome black-haired man. The girl continued to walk in the darkness. She continued to be tormented by questions about where she was going, why she needed to go somewhere, because there was nowhere to return to. She was left completely alone. Ines continued to run, asking the voices that tormented her to shut up, but they whispered to the girl with renewed vigor that it was she who was to blame for the death of her loved ones. Suddenly, someone called the girl who was running in her nightmares by name. The man standing in the halo of light called her to come with him. Realizing that the man had called her specifically, she extended her hand to meet his. Ines looked with hope at the man who extended his hand to her, because only he could pull her out of this nightmare. The girl opened her eyes, breaking free from the shackles of the nightmare. The male voice continued to call her by name. Already aware of what was happening, she looked at the man who was calling her. The girl's savior held her hand and asked if she was fully awake and what kind of nightmares were tormenting her. Ines hesitantly called the man's name, Carson. Without removing her hand from the man's palm, the girl thanked the man for waking her up and said that everything was fine, but that she had caused trouble again today. Carson von Raymond, Lord of Ursonia and Prince of the Empire, told the girl that she should thank the servants because they were the ones who had taken care of her all week. It was this man who saved the girl from the river that day. The girl told the man with a smile that she was indeed fine, and since he had saved her, the seizures had become weaker. In Romfield, she had nightmares that were filled with endless darkness, from which the girl could not escape. However, meeting this man who, risking his life, saved her, dispelled this darkness like a ray of light. Closing his eyes, the man said that although the attacks had become weaker, they still did not bother her. Ines continued to say that she was really fine. The man frowned and said that in that case, he wanted to ask Ines something. The man was very interested in why the girl had thrown herself into the lake a week ago. At that very moment, the voice from the nightmares appeared again, continuing to reproach the girl for the fact that everyone died because of her. Unable to bear it, the girl screamed and covered her ears with her hands, just so she wouldn't hear the voice saying that she was supposed to fall to the bottom of the lake. Darkness began to envelop the girl, and the voice continued to chant that she must die. The girl was still sitting in bed, but she lowered her head and covered it with her hands. In a lifeless voice, she told the man that if a person like her were gone, then everything would be resolved. Carson called the girl, and waiting for her to raise her head, said that if she was having a hard time, she didn't have to say anything. Sighing, the man said that he didn't want to torment the girl. He just said too much. Looking at the sad girl, he added that there is nothing good in engaging in self-flagellation. Unable to bear it, Ines screamed. What if everyone died because of her, her parents, her family, everyone who was connected to her? Tears streamed down the girl's eyes. Without reacting to the girl's emotions, he calmly and firmly stated that even in such a case, there was no need to kill yourself. The girl looked at the man with distrust. Illuminated by bright sunlight, the man stood up and said that it was better to just move on with life anyway. When the girl asked how he could be so confident, he said that it was just life. Turning to the girl, he said that it was up to her to decide what her future life would be like. The girl looked after the man, asking herself what she should do with her life. For half of her life, she heard only death wishes addressed to her. For the past 10 years, she had been told that scum like her had no right to live. Because of all this, the girl, digging her palm into the blanket, asked herself whether it was not her destiny to die. Remembering how she drowned, the girl asked herself if she really wanted to live. Putting her hand to her chest, the girl continued asking herself these questions, wondering what to do with her life. A few days later, a girl in a dark robe walked through a cemetery in the pouring rain. She walked further and further, not paying attention to the fact that her shoes and clothes were completely wet. Having walked around the cemetery, the girl finally found the grave she needed. Looking sadly at the grave, the girl realized that after 10 years, she could not even cry. On the grave, it was beautifully written that Joseph Benoit was buried here. In this grave was buried the insult that was in his eyes. The girl wondered if this insult really concerned her. The girl continued to look at the grave, thinking that everyone around her was saying that she had killed him. Everyone kept saying it until even she began to feel strange. Could it be that she had really killed Joseph? It was some kind of nonsense. Taking off the ring, the girl said that now she wanted to get rid of these painful thoughts. As she placed the ring on the cold stone of the grave, the girl said that she was going to end it for herself. A beautiful ring with a green stone lay in the pouring rain on the cold grave, the final resting place of her love. Looking at this, the girl remembered the first time she saw him. The man was kneeling and holding out to the girl a box with this very ring, saying that he, Joseph Benoit of humble origin, was offering his hand and heart to the beautiful and noble lady Ines Swandon. Smiling at these wonderful memories, the girl sadly asked for forgiveness, saying that she would not come again. Turning around, the girl walked away from the grave. From now on, she wanted to reject the past in order to live happily. Holding the hood on her head, the girl hurried. She needed to return to the village before the weather got even worse. It started to get dark very quickly, and soon the streets became dark. The rain continued to pour and pour. The girl walked along the streets all alone. There was no one on the streets because of the rain. Suddenly, the girl noticed movement in front of her. Someone was walking in front of her. Looking at the man walking in front of her, the girl was deeply shocked. Joseph stood on the same street with her in the pouring rain. The girl spoke in shock, stuttering. The girl asked herself out loud how this could happen. Maybe he was dead. The girl asked the man to listen for a minute, after which he turned his head slightly, looking back at Ines. Seeing how the man suddenly accelerated, the girl froze in confusion, wondering why he did that, since they had just met eyes. The girl began to understand that this was not a hallucination or someone similar. The man continued to move away from the girl. Remembering her husband smiling at her, the girl thought that even after 12 years she could not help but recognize him. Feeling dizzy from the shock that had befallen her, the girl grabbed the pole with her hand. Suddenly, the man stopped, turning to face the girl. Now the girl clearly saw the man's face. It was indeed her husband, who greeted the girl with a smile. They stood opposite each other. The girl asked the man if he was really alive. She walked towards the man and stuttered, asking why he had only appeared now. Listening to the girl, the man smiled broadly. The girl looked at him in confusion, wondering why he was smiling so strangely. Suddenly, there was the sound of hooves, and a team of horses was rushing along the road. Walking towards the man, the girl did not notice at all that she had stepped onto the road, and now the horses were rushing straight towards her. The girl froze in shock. She watched helplessly as the horses rapidly approached her. The next moment, the girl was already flying to the ground. Knocked down by the horse's harness, the girl lay in a pool of blood. Tears were flowing from the girl's eyes. She didn't understand what the hell was going on. She was in so much pain that she couldn't move. With a trembling hand, she reached out to the man's leg, calling his name. The man told the girl, who looked at him with shock and horror, that she was a tenacious bitch. After which, smiling, he said that he was sorry that she didn't die the first time. The next thing the girl saw was Joseph's hand, holding out a purse of coins to the coachman and thanking him. After which, the man returned his gaze to the girl, who continued not to understand what he was doing. The man sighed heavily and complained that he even became a dead man to send her to Romfield, who knew that the girl would be released so soon. Joseph said that it irritated him greatly, and noticing the girl's gaze, asked if he looked well. He leaned over and mockingly said that if the girl thought it was unfair, she could take revenge, if she could, of course. Losing consciousness, the girl watched the man leave. She thought that if all this happened because of him, why did he throw her into this hell? Holding on with all her might, the girl wondered if this man had never loved her. Suddenly she remembered Carson's words about how it was up to her to choose what her life would be like. Now she thought that she had not died then, but apparently it was her destiny to meet such an end. The girl was very happy with her family, and after the hell she had gone through, she thought that now everything would be fine. She did not want to die. She wanted to live a happy life without Joseph. The last thing the girl saw was a bright yellow light, after which she lost consciousness. Ines opened her eyes sharply, remembering the horror of past events. Lying in a snow-white bed, the girl breathed feverishly, clutching the blanket. Trying to calm down, the girl continued to crumple the blanket. She didn't understand what was happening or where she was. Ines clearly remembered being hit by a carriage with horses. Suddenly she heard her name being called. Turning around, the girl froze in amazement. Her mother was sitting next to her. She couldn't believe what she saw. She thought she was dreaming. Wiping the girl's forehead with a towel, the woman asked Ines where she had gone in such rain. Watching her mother's movements, the girl's eyes filled with tears. Touching her mother's hand, the girl thought that this was the first time she had met her mother in 10 years. Tears continued to roll down the girl's cheeks. Looking out the window, the girl asked her mother for forgiveness, saying that she was very sorry. Standing up, the woman said that since she understood everything, she should stop crying because the temperature was not going down. She said that she would bring the girl some water, but Ines immediately stood up, shouting at her mother not to leave. Jumping out of bed, the girl mentally asked her mother not to leave her. She did not want to wake up again. Stepping on the shin, Ines noticed something strange. The girl looked at her leg in amazement, not believing that this was possible. There was absolutely nothing wrong with her ankle. Ever since she began to limp, she had always been in pain, even in her sleep, and this fact was extremely strange. Ines asked her mother to wait. Suddenly, the girl saw her reflection in the mirror and was stunned. The girl fell down in shock, continuing to look in the mirror. The woman rushed to her daughter, asking if everything was okay and why she had jumped up so suddenly. The girl sat in a daze, distrustfully, touching her face, because it was again the same as when she was 20 years old. Everything felt too realistic to the touch. Inessa began to remember everything that happened. The first strange thing was that her mother was alive again. The second oddity was the fact that her face became young again. The third thing was that the ankle was completely healthy again. Realizing that this could only mean one thing, the girl asked her mother how old she would be this year. As soon as the woman answered that she was 39 and asked why her daughter was asking such a question, the girl froze in amazement. If her mother is 39, then the girl really was 20 years old. Everything that happened was not a dream. She really went back 12 years. There were sweets on the table, and everything was ready for a pleasant tea party. Ines and Joseph were sitting in the garden. The man said that today the girl was not acting like usual, and it seemed that she was not interested in conversation. The girl's eyes were full of coldness. Joseph Benoit, a commoner who became a knight through his extraordinary skills. He is a poor guy who was killed by his wife just a year after their wedding. The girl remembered what the man was like before she died. The smiling bastard who called her rude names. All of this described the man who betrayed her. Holding a saucer and a cup, the girl, smiling, said that she was very interested. Looking sad, the man put his hands down and told the girl not to lie to him. And then he smiled happily when the girl said that it was true, because she had been waiting all day for his arrival. Looking into her cup, the girl heard the man asking her to give him some of his time on her upcoming birthday. The girl immediately remembered that it was on her 20th birthday that he proposed to her, and that was when his performance really began. Smiling, the girl agreed, saying that she would try to find time for him. In response, the man thanked her, saying that he needed to go as he had things to do. The girl remembered that it was at that moment that Joseph got up from the table, after which he took a couple of steps, turned around, and told her the news he wanted to tell her at her birthday party, but couldn't hold back. Putting his hand on his chest and smiling happily, he said that he had become a knight in the family of the Count. The girl remembered how that time she stood up and ran towards Joseph. She felt proud of him, and forgetting about the difference in status, hugged the man, saying that he was truly incredible. The girl chuckled, remembering how she had behaved with the man before. Now the girl, without getting up, smiled, praising the man and told him to go quickly. The man stopped. He did not expect such a reaction from the girl. Joseph asked if she didn't want to know what family he became a knight in. Continuing to smile, Inez said that he had become a knight, and which family it was in didn't really matter. It was a good job anyway. Joseph became a knight in the family of Count Grayman of Rossonia. As she tasted the tea, the girl thought that this family was not one of those who were kind to common people, so how could Joseph get in there? The girl thought about it. The whole situation looked very strange. Suddenly the man asked what she was thinking about. Inez immediately smiled and said that it was nothing like that, and advised the man to walk faster. The man asked the girl in surprise why she was trying to get rid of him every now and then today. Hiding her gaze from the man, she looked at the table, saying that there were too many thoughts in her head about the upcoming birthday. Joseph turned away, saying that he understood that. After which he went about his business. The girl did not look after him. The cup in the girl's hand suddenly hit the saucer, and the tea spilled onto the table. The girl bowed her head and placed her hands on the table, shaking all over with suppressed anger. Suddenly, the girl picked up a dessert knife that was lying on the table. She pointed it towards the man, thinking that she wanted to kill him right now. The girl's eyes were full of madness. The knife fell, loudly hitting the ground. The girl understood that this would be very stupid. Inez said that she would be the one to break the man this time, and it would be he who would beg for death. Bright sunlight illuminated the beautiful building of the palace, where a particularly important event was taking place. Bowing before the emperor and empress, the man asked for permission to leave the imperial family. The emperor said that his son was already very grown up, and the man confirmed this by saying that he was already 21 years old. Interrupting her husband, the empress said only one thing, in Lendl. The confused man, touching his temple with his finger, asked the woman again, after which he said that the empress says that in those lands there is no son who could inherit the family line, so they think that it would be good if a man took the place of the lord there. Without raising his head, the man agreed to this proposal. After confirmation, the empress again said one word, Rossonia. Taking the empress's hint, the emperor said that the man could take his younger sister from Rossonia. Without changing his position, the man thanked the emperor and empress for their mercy. Looking at the couple, he said that the Kind's empire should continue its glory. The man walked down the long white corridor and thought. The man's loud and clear steps showed his entire mood. The empress continued to use the emperor as her personal carrier pigeon. The man nervously tugged at the collar of his jacket to loosen it. And the man who called himself the father didn't even know how his children were doing. It had already been 5 years since his younger sister Louisiana was taken to Rossonia. Clenching his hand into a fist, the man thought that he himself was a fool for thinking that he knew Louis. The girl was taken away at such an early age that she had no memory of her family. A heavy downpour hit a small, cozy white mansion. There were 3 people sitting at the table. Inez and her parents were quietly having dinner with their families. The girl looked at her parents with sadness. She still couldn't believe that I would return to the past. The girl's mother noticed that she couldn't take her eyes off them. Turning to her husband, she asked him if he thought Inez had become strange. Before, the child would chatter all day long, but now she had become so taciturn. Reassuring his wife, he said that the girl would simply remain older and calmer, and she should not worry too much. While cutting the meat, the girl said that her father was absolutely right, and she was the same as always. The girl listened, smiling, as her parents argued with each other about this. Suddenly, the father turned to the girl, asking her if she had heard the new news. Noticing that the girl was looking at him, he said that a new lord was coming to Lendhiel. Svendon was originally a small territory on the outskirts of Rossonia. However, after a flood caused by heavy rain 35 years ago, the waterway divided the territory, returning Svendon to Landhill. However, despite the division, all this time Rossonia continued to help their territories little by little. As she brought the piece of meat to her mouth, the girl thought that they were still doing business with them, but since they were part of the lands of Lendl, they had to be careful. Before she could even put the piece in her mouth, the girl heard that the 8th prince had become lord, and his name was Carson von Raymond. Taking the fork away from her face, the girl mentally asked herself if Carson had really become a lord. The girl approached her parents, asking when the new lord would visit Svendon, to which she received an answer from her mother that it would be in about 3 days. The girl shook her head, and her long hair fell down her back again. The girl became sad. She knew that she would not be able to meet him on her birthday. Then the mother said that the prince would go to Rossonia to accompany the princess, who lived in the castle. The girl froze when her father remembered that Lord Rossonia was teaching the princess. The memory tape took her back to her own hell. One of the prisoners screamed that Lord Rasonia had promised to spare her Jason if she killed the girl. The woman repeated this madly, clutching the ribbon in her palm. The girl excitedly asked Lena if she was okay. However, in her madness, she continued to scream, saying that she had killed a member of the imperial family. The girl again heard about Lena killing that bitch. Returning, the real girl wondered why she suddenly remembered Lena. Putting her finger to her lips, the girl had an epiphany. Could the member of the imperial family that Lena was talking about really be a princess? Of course, one couldn't trust everything Lena said, because she was no longer in her right mind. However, suddenly Lena was telling the truth, and this girl was Carson's younger sister. There was a knock on the door from a maid asking if she could come in for a while. Looking at the door, Ines briefly gave permission to enter. The maid entered, telling the girl that she had received a letter from Sir Joseph. The girl opened the letter. She was interested in what Joseph had written. As if sensing the girl's mood, it began to rain again, furiously knocking on the windows. The man congratulated her on her birthday and asked the girl to meet him today. Inessa called the maid by name, to which Susan looked at her mistress, awaiting orders. Smiling, the girl asked her if the man was too impudent. Not understanding what was going on, Susan asked if there was anything strange about the letter. Ines replied that a person should at least have some manners. Crumpling the letter in her hand, the girl angrily asked how a common knight dared to call her by her name. Not only did this man set her up and send her to Romfield, so he also killed her as soon as she got out of that hell. On top of everything else, he laughed as he watched her die. The girl continued to furiously crumple the scoundrel's letter in her fist. The girl promised herself that she would definitely kill him. Ines understood that only if he was gone could she live. The girl told the maid to tell the man that she agreed. As she watched the maid leave, she thought that, of course, Joseph's death would not end everything. If you think about it, forcing so many people to give false testimony in court is not something that some commoner knight could pull off. The girl understood that there was definitely someone with the appropriate level of ability behind him, and if she avoided Joseph, he would let her in through other means. Putting her hand to her chest, the girl promised herself that she would find out who was behind this. Turning around to the rain knocking on the windows, the girl thought that she would give him everything back in full. Clutching the fabric of the dress in her hand, she thought that if she didn't resist, she wouldn't be able to create an ideal world. The girl wondered what an ideal world meant to her. Suddenly, the rain stopped, and the sunlight brightly illuminated the girl. Carson von Raymond, the man who saved her from death. The man who was the only one who extended his hand to her in a life that was like hell. The man who became her salvation. While praying, the girl thought that his mere existence brought her closer to the ideal world. Late in the evening, at sunset, another meeting awaited the girl. Ines, smiling, greeted the man who bowed to greet her. The man blushed, and pressing his hand to his chest, admitted that he missed her very much. She smiled and said that she missed them too, and that they were lucky that the rain had just stopped. The man reached into his inside jacket pocket, saying that he had written a letter to the girl. The man coughed, preparing himself to read it. The girl asked him, smiling maliciously, if he would recite his letter to her. Without noticing the girl's reaction, he said that yes, he wanted to convey his feelings with the help of this letter. Ines looked gloomily at the inspired man, saying to herself the same lines that he spoke. The man asked the girl if she remembered how they met, and complimented her hair, which shone like moonlight in the dark night sky. He said that the look in her green eyes took his breath away. The girl gloomily ended the letter with the words that it was from that moment that the man fell in love with her. The girl remembered how she read this letter every day while lying on her bed, which is why she learned it. Then she believed that all the man's words were sincere. Having stopped reading the letter, the man again reached into his inside pocket, addressing his beloved. The scoundrel smiled as he said that he was modest in his origins, after which Joseph slowly dropped to one knee. Standing in front of the girl, he opened the velvet box with the ring, offering her his hand and heart. The girl looked at the ring that was so familiar to her. The girl covered her mouth with her hand, calling the man by name. He, in turn, continued to smile, kneeling and waiting for the girl's consent. Ines stood up from the table, after which she majestically extended her hand towards the man. However, what happened next was something Joseph did not expect at all. The girl closed the box with the ring, telling him to get up. The man asked in confusion if this was really a refusal, to which Ines replied, "Is this possible?" When the man asked what she meant, she explained that she had received a marriage proposal that day. He was very surprised that she received an offer. Tucking her hair behind her ear, Ines said that her parents had received a marriage proposal from another noble family. She continued to smile, taking the man's hands and telling him not to worry. The girl told the happy man that she would refuse them. There is a small problem with this, however. As if thinking, the girl said that she needed a little time, because the man knew that her father would not give them permission. A beautiful sunset warmed the earth, and anger boiled inside the man. Without raising his head, he asked how long he had to wait. Continuing to feign great sadness, Ines said that who knows until Mom and Dad accept their love. Leaning towards Joseph, she said, smiling, that if you think about it, he had just come into the Earl's family and should do well in his service, and if he received the title of baronet, his father would approve of their union. The man asked the girl how he could deserve this title if there was no war now. Ines, in pain, asked if he was really going to let her live as a commoner's wife, and summed it up by saying that if he really wanted to marry her, he would have to try. The man looked at her silently. He didn't know what to say. The girl looked coldly at the man, thinking that in order to get things moving, she needed to put pressure on him. Joseph is clearly being controlled by someone. This someone made a knight of a count's family, capable of receiving a title out of a nobody, a commoner. This someone put pressure on the court, which is why she was falsely accused of murdering her husband. When her family was destroyed by these false accusations, this man was able to benefit. Folding her arms across her chest, the girl asked why the man was not answering, and whether his words about love were really a lie. Turning away, the girl said that in that case, she would not be able to accept his proposal. The only person who could do all this could be Earl Greyholm. Joseph grabbed the girl's wrist sharply. He shouted that everything was not at all as the girl thought. Ines froze, realizing the force with which the man was squeezing her hand. Pulling her hand away, she said that it was natural, because he really loved her. Putting her hand on the man's chest, she said that this time she would try to put off the conversation about marriage as long as possible, but if another proposal came, she would simply have no choice. Take the box with the ring from the man's hand. She said that she would keep it for herself if he didn't mind. Smiling, the girl thought that when everything returned to normal, the ring would become a symbol of victory. Looking around, Ines said that it was time for them to finish talking today, because the gardener would be arriving soon, and they needed to leave before he arrived. The girl turned to leave, but suddenly froze. Turning around, she addressed the man. Putting her hand behind her head and smiling, she asked if he really considered himself a man of humble origin. The man froze, remembering the first terms from his letter. Not understanding what the girl meant by this question, I asked her again. Their gazes met. No one said a word. Still silent, the girl turned her back to the man. She walked away from the man. The smile disappeared from her face, and her eyes burned with the bright fire of revenge. The man looked after the girl, not understanding what had happened to her, why she was behaving like this. Walking down the street, Ines told Susan to hurry. Prince Carson would soon arrive at the main square of Ursonia. Looking around, the girl asked the lady how she knew about this passage. Hearing this question, Ines lost her step. The girl said that she had been to this place before. She remembered the 10 years of hell when she worked in these places. To the surprised question of how the lady could have ended up in this place, the girl replied that it was a long time ago. Smiling at her mistress, Susan said that she understood now. She said that she was actually a little surprised today. She didn't think that Ines would want to go see Prince Carson. Smiling, the girl asked if it was because she was a fool who didn't want to know anyone but Joseph, and the maid said, embarrassed, that she didn't mean that. Ines knew that Susan's surprise was natural. Joseph proposed to her 3 days ago and hasn't contacted her since. Clenching her hand into a fist, the girl thought about what he was planning again. Pushing those thoughts aside, she told herself that it was much more important to see Carson right now. The girl tried to remember how old he was now. She was interested in what he looked like now. A column of horsemen with cargo were riding along the road. Ahead of them, Carson rode on horseback, his mind busy with thoughts. He was looking forward to finally picking up Louis. The man thought with displeasure that it took longer than he expected. When he was 15 years old, their mother died. The cause of her death was poison that had been accumulating in her body for a long time. Everyone in the imperial family knew whose poison it was, but at the same time, they pretended not to know. The boy was forced to live in a reality in which he had to remain silent about his mother's death, all of which constantly reminded him of his helplessness. When he was 17 years old, something irreparable happened. He ran with all his might to the carriage. The young man asked with displeasure why they didn't stop and why this damn education was still necessary. The girl struggled furiously, calling for her brother. However, the man, holding the girl by the hand, urged her on, saying that there was no time for this. The girl tried to object in frustration, her eyes filling with tears. Bowing his head, the man said sadly that he thought the girl was as smart as Prince Carson. The girl looked at the man without answering and continued to cry. Carson hid his sister behind him, telling the man not to dare behave like that. He threatened that if they touched Louisiana with even a finger, he would not let it go so easily. The Lord chuckled, saying that he did not understand why the young man had such thoughts. After all, it was Her Majesty the Empress, full of parental love, who personally asked for the princess's education. Waving one hand, he asked if Carson was saying that because the Lord was related to the Empress, and the young man told him to shut up. Turning away, the Lord said that it would be better not to use such vulgar expressions. After which he told the trembling princess to go quickly, because she was not going to go against the words of the Empress. At that moment, he was tormented by only one thought: how could some brat hold someone back? Carson let go of his sister and called her name. Squatting down next to her, he put his arm around her shoulders and promised that he would pick her up soon. Louisiana extended her little finger, asking him to promise that he would hurry up and fulfill his promise. The young man took her little finger in his own, making this promise. When his only younger sister was taken away from him, he began saving money to gain strength. All the money was earned honestly, which helped stabilize his precarious situation, and those who had previously looked down on him were forced to bow their heads. And he continued to save money, and after a long time he achieved more. He became the owner of a huge capital, so that when he was 21 years old, he began to wield power. The man remembered how some time ago an important conversation for him took place in the palace. A woman with a glass of wine asked him if he wanted to become Lord of Lendhill. Carson stood next to the Empress, who was sitting on a chair, the woman reading a report in her hands. The Empress read aloud that in this case, the young man would renounce the throne and even the money, which was very interesting. As she reported to the servant, she thought that she did not think that this deal would be a loss. The man and woman looked at each other, their eyes full of coldness and indifference. The woman said she agreed to convey this to His Majesty. As the man turned away, she called after him that he had been working very hard all this time, and Carson confirmed this by saying that it was time for him to go. The man walked out of the Empress's chambers, his eyes burning with fury. He returned to the present again, where they continued to ride. One of the men, turning to Carson, said that they would arrive at the place soon. Looking at it, he said that it was quite fast, considering that it took only 4 days to prepare. The prince sighed briefly. He said what 4 days are compared to 4 years. At this time, Ines asked her maid if many people had gathered to see the prince, to which Susan replied that many had, since he was the most famous among the princes. Carson achieved a lot from a young age, and his handsome face contributed to his popularity. Putting her finger to her lips, the girl listened to how the prince's popularity was no joke, and that every girl should have at least one portrait of him. Looking at the maid, Ines ordered her to get this portrait. Not expecting such an order, Susan was surprised. The girl begged and said that since others had it, she wanted it too, a small portrait the size of a palm. The maid laughed, saying that she would definitely look in the market since she was interested in the prince. However, suddenly their conversation was stopped by a scream. Peeking around the corner, Ines became interested in the noise. She saw a couple who were loudly arguing with each other, and looking closer, the girl realized that the woman was familiar to her. Ines returned to the hell of Romfila, where a mad woman told her that she had killed a member of the imperial family. The girl's eyes widened. She clearly remembered the face of the one who had shouted these madnesses at her. Looking at the woman arguing with the man, she doubted whether it was really Lena. Although she was different from the mad woman from Romfield, she really looked like Lena. At this time, the man in the hood, turning to Lena, said that this was the last time. Lena bit her thumb and wondered if it was true. Ines continued to watch the talking couple from around the corner. At this time, Susan called the lady to come quickly. As if waking up, Ines agreed. The girl began to retreat from her observation point. As she quickly left, the girl wondered what Lena was doing in a place like this. In addition, the departing girl was worried about what kind of man it was. Ines and Susan stood in the middle of the street filled with people. Everyone had come here to see the prince. However, even a quick meeting with Carson could not distract the girl from thoughts about Lena. The girl said that she killed a member of the imperial family in Rasonia, so it turns out that a murder will happen soon. Looking at the bright flags, Ines thought that if they were talking about a princess of the imperial family, then she was talking about Carson's younger sister. It turns out that if a man takes his sister today, then Lena will kill the princess today. The girl hugged herself and realized that this was trouble. The girl looked down, thinking that this information needed to be told to someone. Clenching her hand into a fist, the girl was overcome with thoughts about who could believe her words, what to do if everything was in vain. She could not decide what would happen if she destroyed everything again. Suddenly the girl was pushed, asking for forgiveness. Ines moved from her place, saying to pass. Ines looked at the one who passed by her. It was a little girl with black hair and golden eyes, so similar to Carson's eyes. Ines suddenly froze when she heard the woman walking with the girl call her a princess. The woman urged the girl to walk faster. Ines looked after them. Did she really hear how she said princess? Looking at the girl's black-haired head, she wondered if this little girl really was Carson's little sister. Wanting to stop them, the girl extended her hand forward, telling them to listen for a minute. However, the shouts of the people greeting the prince drowned out her words. The girl began to push people aside, asking them to let her pass. However, she was suddenly stopped, told that the procession had already begun and that it would be impossible to get any closer. Indeed, a column with the prince at the head was already moving along the road. Carson rode his black horse, looking ahead with anticipation. A girl and the woman accompanying her stood next to one of the guards. Ines was wondering what she should do. She didn't know when Lena would appear, and if she didn't tell her as soon as possible, something bad would happen. Suddenly, people heard the rapid clatter of hooves. Looking back at the opposite side, people did not understand who was riding a horse. A woman on a horse was quickly approaching. The guard rushed to intercept her, asking who she was. He asked her to stop, saying that if she did not leave, he would use force. However, the woman remained silent. She had already seen her goal and was not going to hesitate any longer. She tugged on the reins and ordered the horse to go faster. The horse whinnied loudly and sped up, obeying the will of its rider. The guard tried to stop the woman from going any further with a spear, but the woman didn't even pay attention to this. Determination burned on her face. At that moment, Ines realized that the woman sitting on the horse was Lena. The girl looked around in fear, realizing where Lena was rushing. Louisiana stood in her way, not seeing the approaching danger, calling for her brother. Pushing past the guards, Ines rushed forward, thinking that there was nothing she could do. She ran towards the girl with all her might to protect her. Lena rushed madly towards her goal, and Ines rushed to intercept her. Suddenly, the girls' eyes met, each of them understanding what she was about to do. With the thought that she had to protect the princess, Ines wrapped her arms around the girl and covered her with herself. Then came the crushing blow. The red ribbon from the girl's hair fell to the ground. Ines and the girl were lying on the ground. One of the shoes had fallen off the girl's foot. Suddenly, the girl realized that her shin hurt very badly, just like before. The girl closed her eyes in pain, but remembering something important, she looked at the girl, asking if she was okay. The girl looked at Ines with eyes full of tears, after which she nodded briefly, making the girl smile. Leaning on her arm, the girl sat down, telling Louisiana not to worry, that everything would be fine now, okay. At that moment, the horse neighed loudly again, attracting Ines's attention. Twisted between two guards, Lena screamed that they couldn't stop her and that Ines wouldn't get away with it. Looking at the girl, she screamed that if it weren't for this creature, she would have killed her. Inessa looked at Lena. Next to her, the princess was trembling from the horror she had experienced. She cupped the girl's ears and told her not to listen, promising that everything would be fine now. Helping the princess to get up, she told her to go to the prince. She would take her. However, when Ines stood up, she realized that something was wrong with her. The girl saw her surroundings unclearly. Everything was swimming before her eyes. She thought that if she lost consciousness, it would be very dangerous. However, she continued to lead the girl by the hand, thinking that nothing terrible had happened because she had managed to help Carson, because in her past life, he had saved her. If it weren't for Carson, she would have died without knowing anything. The girl walked, her wounds bleeding heavily. She again remembered the phrase, "Whoever wants too much will end up empty-handed." Suddenly, Ines felt her wrist being grabbed hard. The man caught the girl, who was almost falling from pain. Looking intently at Inez, Carson asked if she was okay. The girl looked up at the man and then called him by name. Inez only had time to say the word princess before her strength finally left her. The man picked up the girl, who had lost consciousness from her injuries. After the events that took place, everyone very quickly went to Landhill. As he walked down the corridor, the man thought that as soon as he left the Imperial Palace, something like this happened. He understood that if it weren't for this girl, Lewis would have lost her life. He remembered how she jumped out of the crowd before his eyes, shielding his sister. Carson understood that he didn't have time to help the girl. All he could do was tug on the reins and shout his sister's name. To make sure Carson didn't have time to help his sister, masked men appeared on his way. Seeing them, the prince angrily shouted at them to get out of the way, asking what they were doing now. One of the men said that they could not do this and were only following orders. At that moment, Carson clenched his teeth hard, trying to calm himself down. He realized that he had no other choice and jumped off his horse. Carson charged fearlessly at the men, thinking that he had expected the Empress not to let him go so easily. However, he did not expect at all that she would dare to touch his sister. When the man defeated the mercenaries, he turned around, looking at what had happened to his sister. He froze in shock when he saw that his sister was walking hand in hand with a girl and that she was completely unharmed. Realizing that everything was okay, he quickly walked towards them. Looking at the girl who stood next to his sister, he wondered who she was. The girl was unusually beautiful, but her entire face was covered in blood. The man thought that the girl's face was unfamiliar to him. They were definitely seeing each other for the first time. Looking closer, he noticed that the girl looked like she was about to fall. Carson looked at the girl. She looked like an angel in the sun. The man looked at the girl, fascinated. She was like a perfect creation. Interrupting his thoughts, the prince realized that he had finally reached the chambers he needed. Without knocking, he confidently opened the door. The man walked up to the bed where the girl who had saved his sister lay. Looking at the girl, he thought that at that moment she seemed younger. Remembering her look before losing consciousness, I thought that the atmosphere was completely different. He looked at the girl, wondering why she sacrificed herself for Louis. As if sensing that she was not alone, the girl opened her eyes. Ines looked away, finding Carson next to her bed. Noticing the girl's gaze, the man asked if she was awake. The girl looked at him in surprise and asked uncertainly if he was Prince Carson. While the man sat down in a nearby chair, the girl looked around, asking where she was. Looking at the girl, he explained that she was in Lord Lendhill's castle. Since she had fainted, they had to urgently bring her here. The girl clutched the blanket with her palm. She thought that this time she would definitely die, but Carson saved her this time too. Ines suddenly remembered the hallucination she had seen just before she lost consciousness. The girl realized that this was not a hallucination at all. Looking at the man, she asked if the princess was okay. The girl sighed with relief when she heard that thanks to her the princess was okay and had just come to her while she was sleeping. Throwing back the blanket, the girl said that she was very happy with this news, and now it was time for her to go to the mansion. The man did not expect at all that the girl was going to leave. As she placed her feet on the floor, the girl suddenly shuddered. Her ankle was bandaged. Carson grabbed the girl who had stumbled by the shoulders. The man said excitedly that the girl had lost a lot of blood. Helping her sit down on the bed, he told her not to get up, otherwise she would feel dizzy. Sitting down again in the chair, the man said that, according to the doctor, everything would be fine, but he advised her not to overexert herself for a while. After finishing speaking, the man noticed that the girl was looking at her bandaged ankle. He said that it hurt a lot now, but if the girl rests for a couple of days, she will be able to walk again without any problems. Without looking at the man, the girl quietly confirmed. Carson looked at the girl silently. Rubbing his shoulder with his hand, he thought about how awkward he felt. His thoughts were interrupted by a girl who asked what happened to the woman who was riding a horse. Carson immediately put aside other thoughts and looked closely at Ines. The prince said the woman's identity was difficult to establish while she was in custody. Ines, despite the man, coughed into her fist, nodding unconsciously. The girl's eyes were shining with a bright light. Now she was sure that this girl was Lena. The girl again remembered what Lena had told her in Romfield. From the stories it followed only one thing. The customer was Lord Rassonia, Lord Graham. Despite the man, the girl thought that it would be beneficial for both her and Carson if it turned out that he was behind the assassination attempt on a member of the imperial family. The girl decided that such a chance could not be missed. Turning to the man, she asked if she could meet this girl. The man, amazed, asked why she needed it. Ines said hesitantly that the girl seemed familiar to her. Carson asked again if Ines knew the girl in the dungeon. Averting her gaze, the girl said she thought she needed to take another look at the criminal to be more precise. The man looked intently at the confused Ines. Noticing the look, she, trembling and stuttering, said that if it was impossible, then it was okay. As the man stood up, he thought that meeting the man who had almost killed her was strange, and this made the girl very suspicious. Smiling, the prince looked at the girl, saying that if she really wanted it, then everything was possible. The girl looked at the man in confusion and asked what he meant. As he left, the man said that he could think about this desire later. Seeing the man open the door, Ines asked him again. Suddenly the man stopped, and turning to the girl, said that he had forgotten something. Carson said he had explained the situation to Viscount Swandon, so she needn't worry about it. As he left the room, the man told the confused girl to stay there until she got better. Ines smiled in confusion, wondering if she had been locked in like Lena. A week later, the girl was still staying in Lendhill. The man sat in his office, working with documents. He thought about the fact that the girl who tried to kill his sister still hadn't confessed to anything. Grasping the bars of the grate, the woman said that she was drugged and did not remember anything. At that moment, she was truly not herself. However, the man did not forget that he had also been attacked. The servant approached the prince, saying that they had examined the bodies, but could not establish their identities. The man sighed briefly and put his fist to his forehead, thinking that nothing comes easy. Remembering the girl lying on the bed, he thought of Ina Svendon. From what he could gather, this girl was the only daughter of Viscount Svendon, and she was quite ordinary. It was this fact that made her act of saving a man amazing. Another fact that caught his attention was that the girl was completely indifferent to her pain. The way she behaved and her appearance in general raised doubts about whether she really was a young lady. Suddenly, there was a knock on the office door, and the servant said that Miss Svendon had come to see him. Without looking at the door, the man told her to come in. The man had absolutely no idea what he was working on. The only thing spinning in his head was the girl's name. Looking at the girl who had crouched down in greeting, he did not understand where this feeling of awkwardness around her came from. Suddenly, something about the girl's appearance caught his attention. The girl's leg was still bandaged and looked swollen, although it was a minor injury. Looking at the girl, he did not understand how she could already walk normally. Suddenly, it dawned on the man why he felt awkward around the girl. This discomfort was due to the fact that the girl's soul and body seemed to live a separate life. Carson led the girl to the table where the utensils were prepared. Pointing to a chair, he invited her to sit down. Sitting down at the table, the man asked the girl how her ankle felt. Although her ankle looked swollen, the girl said she was fine. The man asked the girl incredulously if there was anything else bothering her. Looking at the cup in front of her, the girl said that she was fine, thanks to his care, to which the man said that he was glad about it. The prince said that the girl seemed to have recovered, and Ines immediately asked if, since she was feeling better, she could return home. Looking down, the girl wanted to ask, but immediately stopped herself. She must not say a word about Lena, otherwise she will not be able to return. Having finished his tea, the man put the mug on the saucer, saying that before the girl left, he had some business with her. The paper service beamed with a gesture, and he said that he had to boil the girl properly. The man thanked the girl again for saving his younger sister, and said that the case was not closed, so he was late with his thanks. The girl became embarrassed, saying that she simply did what she had to. While the prince was saying that the empire should reward the man who saved a member of the imperial family, the servant placed papers in front of the girl. Seeing how her grandfather began to leaf through the papers, he told her to look and choose what she needed most. After reading the list, the girl saw what she needed most. The man told the girl not to rush, but she immediately stopped him, saying that she had already decided everything. Looking at the man, the girl said that she would like to receive the right of immunity. Fearing that he had heard incorrectly, the man asked her again. He did not understand why the girl had chosen not jewelry or land, but the rules of inviolability. The man chuckled and thought that he knew that this young lady was not so simple. Folding his arms across his chest, the man, smiling, asked what crime she was going to commit, since she was already a noblewoman and would hardly take advantage of such a privilege. He once again advised the girl not to rush into a decision, but she, hanging her head down, said that everything was fine and that this privilege was enough for her. When the man asked him what the reason for such a choice was, the girl asked what would happen if she really did kill the man. The man looked at the girl in amazement. He didn't expect such an answer. Coming to his senses, he grinned cheerfully into his fist. Smiling cheerfully, he said that it was a very unexpected question. Looking at the girl's hands, he asked what she was going to do with those little hands. Looking away, the girl said that she had no intention of doing anything, but you never know what will happen in the future. The prince replied that, as the girl had said, the future could not be predicted, but the right of inviolability did not give complete immunity. Clenching her hands into fists, the girl said that she knew about it, she just didn't want to go to Romfield. The girl remembered again that terrible place that became hell for her. Carson asked again in surprise, asking the girl if she was really talking about the prison near Rosonia. Looking down, the girl said that it was an unbearable place, according to the rumors she had heard. Looking at the prince, the girl asked him to promise that with the right of immunity, even if she committed a crime, she would not be sent to Romfield and the family would not suffer damage. The man looked at the girl thoughtfully. Turning to the servant, he told Noah to prepare the documents that the young lady wanted. Suddenly the girl said that since we were talking about her family, she wanted to say something else. The girl said that she wanted to address Lord Lendl specifically, and the man allowed the girl to speak. Looking at the man, the girl said that although the Svendon family had been annexed to Lindhill, they were still working under Rosonia's leadership, and she thought that needed to be sorted out. Carson looked at Noah in confusion, asking him what the girl was talking about, since Svendon had long since become part of Landhill. Noah told the prince that, compared to the size of the land, the population of Rosonia was very small. For this reason, the Lord often makes exorbitant requests. The angry man said that people from his lands should not serve another. The man warned the girl that it would take some time, as the matter required the approval of the imperial family, but he agreed in advance. The girl listened with a smile to the man's words that he would make sure that by the end of the year, Rosonia would stop interfering in Svenden's affairs. Smiling tenderly, the girl thanked him for this. The men looked back at her with a smile. The girl asked what about the case of that woman. Worried that the man would misunderstand her, she said that she meant the woman who was sitting in the dungeon. The man said that the girl really wanted to meet her. He thought that these were just empty words. Did she really know her? The man asked again if they knew each other, to which the girl said that she could only answer after they met. The man said that he would believe her. Turning to Noah, he told him to go with the young lady. The girl raised her hand in confusion, asking why it was necessary to send an assistant with her. She told the prince that he was probably very busy, and she did not want to disturb him, so she could go with another servant. However, the man reassured her, saying that she was his benefactor and ordering Noah to accompany her. Ines thanked the man who showed her the direction. Suddenly, the prince stopped the girl, calling her name. The girl turned in the doorway, hearing that the man wanted to ask her a question. She looked at the man, waiting for his question. Looking at her intently, Carson asked if they had met before. Noah looked at the couple in shock. He didn't know what to say. Hearing the question, the girl smiled briefly. Turning to the prince with a bright smile, she said that they had not met. Noah led the girl through the corridors of the dungeon, indicating that they had arrived. There were 2 guards standing near the cell who allowed them to enter. Entering the cell, they saw a girl squatting near the wall. Noah called her by name, and upon hearing her name, the girl was amazed and opened her eyes. Turning sharply, she noticed people entering her cell. She rushed forward, asking if Ines was really the bitch who had disturbed her in the square. She accused the girl of having caused everything to go to hell. Noah ordered the guards to first tie Lena up so she couldn't move. Ines sat on a chair in front of the tied-up girl. Addressing her, she said that even if she continues to remain silent, she will still be condemned. After which she added that they would probably execute them after they were sent to Romfield, to which Lena asked if she really thought everything was that simple. Ines smiled briefly. In principle, everything was going as she thought. Leaning towards the girl, she asked what was going on. Did she really think that the one behind her would help her avoid trial? To which Lena screamed, ordering her to shut her mouth. The man looked in surprise at the girl who was telling Lena that she was stupid, because why save her life if the plan had failed? On the contrary, it would be more profitable for her employer if she was killed before she appeared in court. In response to Ines's words, Lena spat in her face. The man rushed to the girl, asking if she was okay. Smiling, the girl said that everything was fine, despite Noah's suggestions to end it and get up. The girl apologized, saying that she had forgotten her scarf in the room and asked for a favor. Having said that he would, of course, pass it on to the knight, Noah walked towards the exit, keeping an eye on the girl out of the corner of his eye. Bending down, Ines called the girl's name again. Asking if she could tell something, the girl said that she knew very well whose orders Lena was following. Lena looked on in shock when Ines asked her what she would do since Lord Rosonia had abandoned her. Checking where Noah was standing, she said that Earl Greyholm must have said that if she did as she was told, there would be no problems. When Lena asked who she was, Ines advised her to think carefully, because it didn't look like the Count had rushed to save her. No one knew what Lena would say later. Realizing that this would not convince her, the girl chuckled. After which Ines said a name to which Lena immediately responded, Jason. Leaning over the trembling girl, Ines said that Jason was going to die soon. The girl continued to tremble, madly, repeating that it was impossible. Ines didn't know who Jason was, but she knew that he was an extremely important person for Lena. After all, it was because of his death that she went crazy. Ines continued speaking, saying that Jason, whom she treasured so much, would surely die at the hands of the Count. Unable to bear it, Lena rushed at the girl, asking what she was talking about. Hearing the scream, the man turned towards the girls. Seeing Lena lying on the floor of the cell, they asked what happened. Inessa replied that Lena suddenly rushed at her with threats, but the woman furiously denied this. Noah ordered to lift the girl from the floor. Ines looked into the girl's eyes without looking away. The girl was full of horror, remembering Ines's words that Jason would die. Lena screamed hysterically, demanding that Ines shut up, but Ines responded by saying that she was the one who needed to keep quiet. Leaning towards the girl, Ines grabbed her chin with force. The girl said that she would now tell us what Romfield was. Ines said that first they would tear out her fingernails and toenails. Looking at the girl with a crazy look, she said that she would not have a single whole bone left. Then she asked the girl what she thought about rotten food, because one day she would be happy to swallow what she had vomited up. Concluding her story, the girl said that it would not matter to her what people she did not even know, would do to her. A sobbing Lena screamed at her to shut up. Ines chuckled as she listened to the girl say that she was a crazy bitch who had completely lost her mind. The girl hugged herself and laughed merrily, frightening those around her. Looking at the girl, she thought that who would have thought that one day she would hear something like this from crazy Lena. Clenching her hand into a fist, she thought that the girl was not wrong. Since she returned to her 20s, she was going crazy with anger every day. After which, Ines asked the girl if she had become too scared. Tucking her hair behind her ear, she told her not to worry. Looking at the crying Lena, she said that she too would go crazy one day. Suddenly, the guard returned to the cell, telling the girl that he had brought her handkerchief. Clutching the handkerchief to herself, Ines thanked him with a gentle smile. Noah looked at the girl in amazement. He didn't understand what he had just seen. Looking at the chair, the girl asked the knight to help her sit Lena on it. Looking at the bent-over girl, she told her to come to her senses and figure out what situation she was in. Ines warned her that if she continued to be stubborn, everything would happen exactly as she heard us say. Finally, noticing the awareness in the girl's gaze, she said that everything would become reality. Ines suggested that she join forces with Prince Carson, tell him the truth, and beg for leniency. In conclusion, she said that this is the only way to save herself and her loved ones. Turning around, the girl said that now she could go. Ines walked out of the cell, leaving behind Lena, who was bent over on the floor. Suddenly, there was a knock at the office door. Carson, sitting at work, allowed entry. Noah walked through the door. He had returned from seeing the girl off. The man wondered how he could explain the situation to Carson. Approaching the table, Noah addressed the man, to which he gave permission to speak. Hearing the snort, Carson asked what was wrong, to which the man said that the young lady had returned to the mansion. After which he amazed the prince by saying that Lena Marié had agreed to tell everything. The man didn't understand. He tried to persuade her for a whole week, but Lena didn't open her mouth. Holding his chin, the man wondered how it had all happened in the end. The man continued to receive letters from the public order squad, who wanted to take Lena away. However, if the girl ends up with them, she will be within the reach of the Empress. The man's gaze became hard. He understood that the Empress was worried that it would be revealed who was behind this. He had been persuading Lena for so long and was already thinking that he would have to hand her over to the security squad. But as soon as she met Ines, she finally decided to open her mouth. The man did not understand how the girl knew about Louis, about Lena, and about how to resolve everything. As the man continued to read the documents, he thought that in the past he would have written everything off as fate. But now everything was different. He asked Noah what the girls were talking about. The man said that the girls did not talk about anything that they had not already talked about with Lena. However, there was only one strange moment. When asked what moment it was, the man hesitated. After a short pause, he told the prince that the girl had told Lena about Romfield. The man explained that the girl had told him that if Lena continued to remain silent, she would end up in Romfield. But he had also told Lena about this more than once. But for some reason this time, she had reacted so sharply. The man immediately remembered the words the girl had spoken about this place and how she didn't want to go there again. Interrupting the man's thoughts, Noah said there was something else. The man told about Lena spitting at the young lady. When Carson asked why he just stood and watched, he answered that she herself asked him to send a knight for a handkerchief, after which they were left alone, and Lena's behavior changed. Carson stood up from his seat, saying he didn't quite understand what had happened. The man left the table saying that now they would go to the dungeon. He personally wanted to meet Lena. However, before he could take a step, Noah stopped him, saying that there was something else. The servant told how the princess personally escorted Miss Svendon to the carriage, despite the fact that she was afraid to even leave the room. When the prince asked what they were talking about, he replied that they didn't talk about anything. They just said hello, hugged, and parted. Carson asked irritably what nonsense he was telling him, to which he replied that he was not lying. The man ran his hands through his hair, nervously fingering it. Everything was happening very unexpectedly. To sum it up, the man said that he would meet with Lena first. The men entered the girl's cell together. Looking at the girl squatting near the wall, he called her name. The girl's eyes widened in amazement. She didn't expect a prince to come to her. Jumping up, the girl immediately said that she would admit who was behind her. Falling to her knees, she bowed, saying that she would tell everything only if they saved Jason. Without taking his eyes off Lena, the man asked who Jason was. She desperately said that this was her 3-year-old son. If they saved him, the criminal would be a witness. When the prince asked if this was true, she replied that yes, Her son had been captured by Earl Grey, so they had little time left. Hearing this, the man smiled contentedly. Naturally, he knew that it was someone from the Empress's inner circle, but he did not expect that it was the Lord himself. The man thought he should tell the Lord thank you, because thanks to this mistake, he finally grabbed the Empress by the tail. Carson promised that he would find her son. The girl, not expecting this, asked incredulously if it was true. The man asked the girl if she knew where her son was now. Lena replied that she didn't know the details, but only knew that he was being hidden somewhere. Upon hearing the answer, the man asked what the boy looked like. The girl, describing her son, said that he had brown hair and blue eyes, and also a small scar under his left ear. Carson told Noah to give the knights this description so that they could find out everything secretly. Having given the order, the man said that he wanted to ask Lena one more question. The man asked the girl, frozen with fear, if she knew the girl who had met her today. The girl remembered Ines, calling her by name. The girl bowed and admitted that they had met for the first time. The prince asked if she was sure about this, to which the girl replied that they had met for the first time in the square, but the girl seemed to already know her. Looking at Lena, the man thought that their thoughts converged. Turning away from the girl, he told her to wait a little while until he found her child. Lena was amazed by this and thanked the prince. Lena looked after the man, thinking that she would not forget the words Ines had said. Turning around in the cell door, the man told Lena to forget the girl's name. The cell door slammed shut again, leaving Lena alone. Moving further and further away from the cell, the prince called Noah, preparing a new order for him. Carson dictated to the man recording that rumors were to be spread that Lena Mayer had set the room on fire to commit suicide, but that nothing could be officially released. He also ordered Noah to inform the public security that they could not hand over the case to them until the investigation was completed. The last order was to find a suitable woman's body, which was to be burned so that the face could not be recognized. And so 4 days passed in Lendhill, full of events. Sitting with the documents, the man thought that they had found Lena's son. While reporting, Noah told the man that they had spread a rumor about Lena's death, causing one of Graham's henchmen to act suspiciously. When asked how he planned to deal with Lena, he replied that he would hide her for now. Yes, Lena was a real criminal who tried to kill a member of the imperial family and would be punished, but for some reason, he thought that he should ask Ines for permission. Having told Noah to put the matter aside, he ordered him to take the child to his mother. After thinking for a moment, the man said that the child had been found, and now Lena would testify in their favor. Noah asked the man why Earl Graham was targeting him. Carson replied that he did not know the answer to that question. The prince thought that it seemed that the Empress thought that he was a threat to her because she was the one who was behind the count. He did not have enough strong evidence to catch the Empress, and she would not stop trying to kill him in the future. The man's gaze became thoughtful. He thought that it seemed he would have to wait a little longer. He had to prepare as perfectly as the Empress. Sighing tiredly, the man said that he would probably be very busy in the future. Noah reminded that there would soon be a ball in his honor. The man sighed again and leaned back in his chair, folding his arms across his chest, and told Noah that there was about a month left until this event. Having heard from the man that a huge number of people would come to the ball, he immediately remembered the amazing and strange girl Ines. She was a noble young lady who rushed to save a person as if she had nothing to lose. The girl was amazing when she talked about how she could kill a person with her fragile body. This girl could change other people's opinions in an instant. Carson looked at the ceiling and thought about this strange girl. Suddenly, the man surprised Noah by asking if it would be a problem if he sent Miss Svendon a dress for the ball. The servant said that it would be a fitting reward for saving the princess's life. When the prince asked about the reward, he asked if that was why he wanted to send the dress to the girl. The man froze. He had actually forgotten about the reward. After which he said that as a reward, it would be nice to add jewelry to the dress, and ordered that a necklace be prepared as well. However, when the man went to carry out the prince's instructions, he was suddenly stopped. Leaning on his hands, he said that the reward should be green, but not too dark. Noah stood in the doorway, amazed, thinking that Carson was more sensitive than he seemed. The man was surprised at himself, why he suddenly started talking about the color green. He doesn't know, but for some reason, when he thinks about Ines, this color comes to mind by itself. And so, finally, a month passed, and in Lendhill, late in the evening, the lights came on, awaiting the arrival of guests. Noah read the prince a message stating that Svendon was forbidden to cooperate with Rosonia and was being returned to the bosom of Lendl. Hearing Noah's words that this was the Empress's answer, he said that from now on, Svendon would only cooperate with them. The servant continued to wonder how the difficult question of ownership of the territory had been resolved so quickly, and Carson replied that it had to be so. Gritting his teeth, the man asked if he had threatened the Empress to resolve the issue quickly. Smiling, the man said that this was impossible. He only reminded that he had received gifts that the Empress had sent to the square. Considering that the man himself spoke about the murderers, the Empress would not act for some time, so she approved this dispute over territories. Continuing to smile, the man thought that, of course, in the future the Empress would be attacked again, but over the years, Carson had also prepared for a lot. Suddenly, Noah started talking about gifts, but the prince stopped him, saying that it was not important now. As he entered the hall, he said that he should first finish with the greetings. As Carson walked down the stairs, he saw that a large number of guests had already arrived. Smiling happily, the man greeted his guests, playing the role of a hospitable host. Suddenly, movement at the door attracted the prince's attention. A couple entered the hall. Father told Inez that the young prince had become Lord of Lendhill, and now he couldn't wait to see the future of these territories. Having said this, he looked at his daughter and noticed that she did not look very well. In response, the girl said that she was just a little worried. Inez couldn't help but be nervous, because a special person was supposed to come to today's ceremony. Joseph Benoit, Inez's beloved, was supposed to appear at the ceremony. The girl remembered reading a letter in which the man wrote that he wanted to hear an answer to his proposal of marriage, and said that he would be present at the ball, where he wanted to talk to her. The girl tore up the letter, thinking that a commoner at a ball sounded very funny. However, suddenly the girl noticed a man entering, realizing that there was only one way. Lord Rassonia loudly said that the prince was only the Lord of Lendhill, yet he was throwing such a grand banquet. The girl next to him laughed and said that the Lord was a member of the imperial family, so he should make himself known. Josh Benoit came to the banquet as Lord Rassonia's guard. Lord Rassoni, turning to Carson, said that today's ball was impressive. Turning to the man, he said that he had done nothing special. Introducing his companion, Lord Rassonia said that he had come here with his daughter. He brushed aside the man's offer to dance with her, which caused displeasure on the part of the girl. Noticing the prince's behavior, he smiled contentedly. Turning to Carson with sadness, he asked him not to be so strict with him, because he, instead of him, took care of Louis as if he were his own family. In response to these words, Carson immediately became angry, asking who the Count was caring about. The Count looked back at the prince imperturbably, after which he asked the prince if he and Her Highness were not family. Carson, too calm, asked if the Count was talking about family, after which he asked if this was really how Count Greyholm treated his family, and in response, he asked in confusion what he was talking about. The prince asked if he understood correctly that the man had sent his sister and the princess of the empire to meet him with only one servant. The man hesitated, trying to explain his decision. However, the man immediately fell silent when the prince said that the Count seemed to hope that trouble would happen. The man did not take his eyes off the Count. Anger burned in them, before he would have remained silent, because Louis was in the man's hands. But now everything was different. The men stood silently, looking at each other. Inez and her father, who were watching this, noticed that the atmosphere around them was too disturbing. Carson looked up from the man when he heard someone speaking to him. In front of him stood Inez with her father, who bowed, introduced himself, and said that it was an honor for him to meet him. Carson immediately smiled, extending his hand in greeting to the man. Lord Rassonia looked grimly at the couple who shook hands, saying that they were pleased to meet each other. Father Inez laughed joyfully, ignoring the grim Lord Rassonia, who kept his eyes on him. Carson noted that he should have personally come to Swandon with thanks, but he was late, after which he thanked them again, saying that thanks to the young lady, they managed to solve a big problem. The girl looked at the man with emotion, after which she thanked the prince for such valuable gifts. Touching the necklace with a green stone on her neck, she asked if the prince himself had chosen these dresses and necklaces. Smiling, Carson replied that yes, because he could not entrust gifts for his charity to others, to which the girl noted that the man must have been very busy. After which, leaning closer to the girl, he quietly said that he knew that green would suit her. Inez's father looked at his daughter's communication with the prince with surprise. He suddenly turned to the men, saying that he had something to say to both of them. Smiling, Carson said that since they were all gathered here, it would be nice to chat right now. Inez's father asked in surprise what the prince wanted to tell them. The man firmly stated that from now on the Svendon family would be completely subordinate to Lendhill. This message caused strong emotions in all three people present. When Lord Rassonia asked why this was so, he said that after checking, he discovered that although Svendon had moved to the jurisdiction of Lendhill, he still maintained close ties with Rosonia. When the Lord asked if this was a problem, he replied that he knew that the redistribution of territory had happened 35 years ago, but now it looked strange. But the Lord did not give up, saying that this happened only because of the change in landscape, and since politics was not involved, then everything should be fine. The man continued to talk about how Svendon had helped Rosonia for generations, and as the prince approached him, he stopped him. The man angrily asked how the Lord dared to contradict the imperial family, to which he replied that this was not so, and noted that the matter must be approved by a special law. Without taking his eyes off the count, Carson asked him not to worry, saying that the empress had already given her approval for this. The count asked again incredulously, to which Carson, putting his hand on his shoulder, said that he could send a letter to the palace right now if he didn't believe it. But since the matter was within the competence of the imperial family, he wasn't sure that he could change anything. Lord Rosonia looked at the prince darkly. He did not expect the empress to approve of this. Removing his hand from the man's shoulder, he said that he was now the lord of these lands and would definitely sort everything out, and the Svendon family would now only help Lendhill. Ines and her father watched the conversation between the two men in amazement. Turning away from the earl, Carson said that the lord could go, for he had nothing more to say, and he still had many people to greet. Lord Rosonia trembled violently with barely suppressed anger, after which he walked away quietly, saying that today he would retreat. Following the lord, Joseph passed by Ines, looking at her intently. This look was also noticed by Carson, who was looking at the girl at that time. Sitting on the sofa and leaning against the back, the man relaxed, telling Noah that he was already very tired, to which the man noted that the prince had not even greeted all the guests yet. Carson asked Noah if this was the end of it, to which he replied that the second part would begin with dancing. Hearing the prince say that this was the worst part, and he wanted to skip it, Noah, handing the prince the written sheets, said that it would be difficult, but first it was necessary to check the list. Taking the sheets of paper in his hands, Carson asked what the list was. After reading some of the sheets, I asked what it was, because the sheets only contained names and details about the young ladies. The surprised prince asked if Noah was really offering him to find a wife at the very first banquet, to which he received the answer that this list was not for that. It was just nice to know who you were dancing with. Before he could finish speaking, Noah immediately heard a categorical no from the prince. When Noah asked if the prince really didn't want to get married, he smiled and said that according to the man, this list was only for dancing. Having heard such an answer, he asked him not to refuse so easily. The man enthusiastically told that this list included the daughters of all noble families, starting with the viscounts. This list described the family's status, reputation, the size of the dowry, as well as the appearance and age of the young ladies. Finishing speaking, the man said that he had written down many worthy people in this list. Carson said sarcastically that Noah was indeed a very competent assistant. Looking at the man embarrassed by the praise, I thought that I had previously considered this guy to be very insightful. Carson told the man that he wanted to rest a little and asked him to go out, to which the servant agreed, asking him to look at the list at that time. The prince breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, the long-awaited peace and quiet had arrived. Deciding to get some fresh air, the man approached the door to the balcony. Standing on the balcony, the man enjoyed the silence and beauty of the night sky. The man said to himself that it was awkward to play the role of a lord all day, but it was better than being in the place of a prince. Looking at the list in his hands, the man thought about marriage. As he turned the pages to look at the information, he thought that for a single lord, this was inevitable. Suddenly looking at the sheets, the man tensed up. He noticed that for some reason, Inez's name was not on this list. The man's thoughts were interrupted by a noise under the balcony. Carson saw a girl walking down below, heading towards the park. Taking a closer look, the man realized that it was Ines, and now he wondered where she was going alone at such an hour. However, the next moment the man tensed up even more. He noticed that on the other side of the girl, a man was heading towards the same park. Carson wondered who he was. Looking around, the girl looked and made sure that there was no one here. Turning around, she said that here they could talk in peace. The girl and the man greeted each other. Taking a step towards the girl, Joseph asked how she knew he was following her. Ines replied that she knew this because she smelled his perfume. Awkwardly, putting his hand on the back of his head, he said that he tried to follow fashion and it worked. Looking at the girl with a smile, he said that he had been thinking about this since the moment he first saw her at the ball. After which, unexpectedly for the girl, he suddenly hugged her, saying that she was beautiful today. Continuing to hug the girl, he admitted that he really wanted to hug her. Ines was confused by the man's actions and felt dirty. Moving away from the girl and looking into her eyes, he asked if she missed him. Tearing her hands from his and looking back, the girl told Joseph not to touch her because someone might see them. Looking embarrassed, the man apologized, saying that he actually wanted to meet sooner because he had good news. Looking at the man, the girl was surprised at what good news he wanted to tell her. Putting his hand to his chest and smiling joyfully, he solemnly said that he had received the title of baronet. Waving his hand, he said that Earl Graham had honored him and given him a title. The girl lowered her head and sighed, smiling as she listened to the man talk about how lucky he was that he could get the title she wanted so much. The girl was puzzled. The Count not only made Joseph a knight, but also gave him a title. Ines did not understand why this was done. When the girl asked if he had really become a baronet, the man took another step closer to her, saying that as soon as this title was awarded, he would officially propose to her. Touching the girl's cheek, he said that now the secret meetings would be over. Looking at the girl with fascination, he said that they would definitely be able to become spouses soon. The girl thought that now there was nothing that could interfere with this marriage, in which case they would really get married soon. The girl was horrified by the thought that that terrible future could come sooner. Ines tried to calm herself down, thinking that this wouldn't happen. She just needed to hurry with her plan. Looking at the man with a smile, she said that they had not even received permission yet, and so it was too early to talk about it. After which, she told the man that it was time for him to leave, to which he was very surprised. Explaining her words, the girl said that a guard knight should not leave his master for a minute. In response to the man's question whether he should leave, she said that yes, he didn't know, but nobles were very sensitive to such things, so he should hurry. Putting his hand to his chest, the men said that he would then go first and wished them a speedy meeting. The girl remained standing in place, watching the man leave. The girl was gloomy. Hatred was visible in her eyes. Ines, overcome by her emotions, completely failed to notice the spectator who was watching what was happening from the side. Carson looked at the girl. He followed her because he was interested in what happened, but the man did not expect that it was a date of lovers. However, the attentive man noticed something strange. The emotions coming from the couple were completely different. The girl was returning to the ball, walking along the corridor. She was thinking about why Lord Rassonia needed to promote a commoner from a knight to a baronet. Biting her finger, the girl wondered if the Lord really had any dislike for her family and therefore wanted to destroy them, or if he needed something else. Approaching the door, the girl took hold of the handle, thinking that her head was hurting from trying to figure it out, but she couldn't find the answer. Entering the room, she planned to take a little rest and collect her thoughts. Suddenly, the girl stopped, hearing a voice asking if someone was still waiting. Hiding in the shadows, the girl tried to figure out who it was. Lord Rassonia's daughter sat on the sofa, and Joseph stood opposite her. Looking at the girl, Joseph said that it seemed she had had too much to drink. Holding a glass of wine in her hand, the girl said that the man had arrived too late and needed to come quickly. To Ines's surprise, Joseph immediately asked the girl if he could do it. The girl watched the couple from behind the screen, thinking that the man was in such a relationship with Graham's daughter, and she didn't even know about it. Ines saw the Lord's daughter sit on the man's lap, unbuttoning his shirt. The couple were incredibly close. The girl tried to hold back her laughter. Now she had a good reason to decline Joseph's offer. At this time, Joseph asked the girl sitting on his lap what kind of alcohol it was that she drank so much of. The girl immediately screamed that her father and the prince had ruined her mood, so he should shut up and focus on the matter at hand. Reaching for the girl's lips, he said that he would do everything as she wished. Inessa turned away from the couple. She thought that they would have some important conversation, but now it was better for her to leave here. Suddenly, someone's hand forcefully covered the girl's mouth. Clenching her hands into fists, the girl thought she was being attacked, deciding that she was alone here. However, the girl's fears were not confirmed. A familiar male voice whispered her name in her ear. Turning back, the girl already had a sign of who she would see behind her. Carson stood, holding the girl tightly by the hands. When Ines began to ask what he was doing there, the man put his finger to his lips, calling the girl to be quiet. After which, almost in a whisper, he told the worried girl that they should remain silent now. Meanwhile, Joseph, turning to the girl sitting on him, suggested that they stop for today. She mockingly said that the man was behaving like a real knight, to which he noted that they could come in here. Getting off Joseph and adjusting her dress, the girl said that this was not funny. Watching him button his shirt, she asked if he had just met Miss Svendon. The man confirmed, saying that he had notified Ines of receiving the title. Sighing, the girl said that it was good. because now the girl's family would not be able to object to the marriage. But everything became a little more complicated. Joseph asked in surprise what had become more complicated. The girl reminded the man of Carson's words about helping the Swandon family. Closing her eyes, the girl reported that because of this, her father had already rushed to the imperial palace. Joseph clarified what would happen with their plan, whether there would be any problems. The girl told the man not to worry, but to hurry up with the wedding, saying that if they deal with the prince, then everything will go according to plan. After thinking, the man asked if the prince would be a problem for them. The prince and Ines listened, as the girl said that according to her father, Carson had a stash of money, so he was capable of destroying everything. Hearing this, the girl wondered why the prince's name had suddenly come up. Meanwhile, Joseph continued to worry, asking if it was worth relaxing so much now. The girl again calmed him down, saying that Lendl would soon unite with Rossonia anyway. Smiling, the girl advised the man to think about the good, because he only had to wait a little bit, and he would be able to play with the pretty Ines to his heart's content. Smirking in response, the man asked the girl if this was not why he was going to die and wake up, after which the conversations ended, and the couple again merged into a furious kiss. Turning to the girl, Carson suggested leaving here. The couple sat at the table opposite each other. The prince began the conversation by asking if the girl knew these two, since they were talking about the Svendon family. Ines replied that she was seeing the girl for the first time. Clutching the dress on her knees with her hands, she confessed that the man was her fiancé. Noticing how nervous the girl was, he asked if she was okay. Ines calmed the man down, saying that she was okay and that they would deal with him soon anyway. Without taking his eyes off the girl, he announced that he had to tell her something. Hearing that Lena confessed, she was shocked, saying that she had believed from rumors that the girl had died in a fire. Carson said that he himself started these rumors, and now she is with her son Jason in his mansion. Now the girl understood whose name Lena was so desperately calling. The man said that Earl Greyholm took the boy hostage to shut the girl's mouth. Ines was very glad that the boy was found. Suddenly, Carson puzzled the girl by noticing that the girl was not very surprised by what was said. The man sighed and said he had no idea, but the girl clearly knew about the Count, but since she was helping him, she was clearly not on Graham's side. After which he said that he planned to hide Lena's existence for some time, to which the girl immediately emotionally asked the reason for such a decision, because Lena could become excellent evidence of Graham's guilt in the assassination attempt on a member of the imperial family. The man thoughtfully replied that this was not enough. He had to catch a bigger fish. The girl did not understand what the man meant when he said this. Looking at the girl, the man explained that he meant the person who stood behind Graham, namely Her Majesty the Empress. The girl froze in shock. Her gaze was absent-minded. She did not expect that the Empress herself was involved here. Now Ines understood who Carson was targeting. Obviously, the matter was more complicated than she thought. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, after which Noah entered the room, noticing that the Lord was there, and with him was Miss Svendon. The man apologized for interrupting the conversation, but noted that the evening's main character had been gone for too long, and Carson was surprised that so much time had passed. Clearing his throat, Noah told the Lord that he should hurry to open the ball with the first dance. Carson stood up from his seat, saying that there was nothing he could do and that he would have to go, after which he made the girl very surprised by suggesting that she go together. Carson confidently extended his hand to the girl, waiting for her to die. Smiling, the man put his hand to his chest, asking the girl for permission to accompany her. The girl, enchanted, placed her hand in the man's palm, while the prince ingratiatingly asked the girl if she would do him the honor of giving him the first dance. Leaning down, the man pulled the girl's hand to his lips, leaving a searing kiss on it. Ines couldn't take her eyes off the man, her eyes twinkling mysteriously, after which he forced the girl to grab his elbow, telling her to get a more comfortable grip. The excited girl could not utter a word. Pleased with the girl's reaction, the man smiled and invited her to go. However, having taken a step, he stopped, remembering the important task of Noah's day. Carson announced to the man, who was listening attentively, that there had been a mistake in the list he had given him earlier. Smiling slyly, he ordered his assistant to be sure to include the Svendon family on this list. Noah froze. The man had absolutely no idea what the prince was talking about. However, the man soon remembered the list of brides that he had given to the prince. Taking out a notebook, the man actively wrote down what was said, saying that he would carry out the instructions. Looking at the couple leaving the room, he thought that the prince would find a mistress for his mansion much faster than he thought. Walking down the corridor, the couple returned to the ball, each of them thinking about their own things. Breaking the silence, the girl asked if everyone would be looking at them. Turning his head towards the girl, the man, smiling, asked if the girl was nervous, because he thought that she was calm in any situation. Without looking at the man, the girl explained that it was her first time at such a big ball, and she felt awkward. Trying to hide his chuckle, the man coughed, telling the girl that she had a surprisingly sweet side. Looking at the man, the girl asked in confusion if the man was joking and explained that she had not often attended balls before and had only danced with her father, after which she amazed the prince with the news that he was her first partner. Carson looked away and nervously rubbed the back of his head. It was unusual to hear something like that. Not noticing the man's reaction, the girl said that she was already 20 years old, and this was almost the first time she was dancing at a reception, and apparently in the man's eyes it looked strange. With a smile, the girl remembered that, like all the other girls, she made her debut at 16, and then she danced with her father. With a slight smile, the girl admitted that she had not been to such receptions since then, because she liked Joseph. The man watched as the girl continued to share with him her memories of how, at the age of 16, she thought about becoming the wife of a commoner. Hearing this, Carson thought that since the girl had loved a man for 4 years, it would not be easy for her to forget that guy. Stopping, the man asked why the girl changed her mind and came to this ball. The girl didn't have time to answer. The couple had already entered the hall, and people were looking at the prince, saying that he had finally arrived. The young ladies, talking to each other, asked what kind of girl was next to the prince. The couple stood on the balcony under the close attention of all the guests. Turning to the girl, the man said that they were unable to talk today and suggested that they talk next time. The girl agreed. Looking at the guests gathered below, the girl froze, seeing something strange. Among all the guests, who were talking among themselves, a couple stood out, who did not take their eyes off them. Lord Rasonia's daughter and Joseph looked gloomily at Ines and the prince. The girl smiled contentedly. She liked the picture she saw. Looking at the man with superiority, the girl mentally asked Joseph if he liked this situation. If the girl still seemed like a fool, being confused by his words. As she walked down the stairs with the man, the girl said she thought that she was a pretty bad dancer because she had no experience. Hearing these words, the man stopped. The girl smiled and tucked her hair behind her ear, saying that she hoped not to step on the man's foot while dancing. The man turned sharply to the girl, who was not expecting this. Extending his palm to the girl, he allowed her to step on his feet as much as she wanted. The girl held out her hand to the man in disbelief. It seemed like a vision to her. Coming to the center of the room, the man asked the girl if she could swim. The girl answered negatively, wondering why he was asking about this. Taking the girl's hand in his, Carson said he felt like they were in the same boat by accident, and the girl might fall off. After which he asked the girl not to worry too much. Ines looked at the man, waiting for an explanation. Pressing the girl tightly to himself by the waist, he said that he was an excellent swimmer. The couple began their first dance, the man leading the girl in the dance, and she willingly followed him. Turning around and looking at the man, the girl realized that although she was inexperienced, following a man was very natural. Looking at how sensitively the girl reacted to his movements, Carson smiled contentedly. Suddenly, he noticed that the other men were talking among themselves, without taking their eyes off the girl in his arms. Carson understood that if she went to balls, many would be hanging around her. The dancing couple was still being closely watched. Joseph watched the girl's every movement with a gloomily expression. It was noticeable how he was trying to restrain himself. But the couple did not notice this. Carson asked the girl if everything would really be okay. Raising her face upward, the girl asked what the man meant. The prince explained that 4 years was a long time, after which he asked Ines if she loved this man. The girl asked the man again in amazement. However, the song ended and the couple had to stop. The man and woman thanked each other for the dance. Bowing, the girl, answering the man's question, said no. Smiling, the girl added that the current her does not love Joseph at all. Hearing the answer, the man smiled contentedly. Turning to the musicians, Carson asked that the next song be ode to the goddess of victory. The musicians immediately began to play the ode in question, and the man, extending his hand to the girl, said that today she needed support, not consolation. Spinning in the dance, the girl thought that this world was full of malice and contempt for her, but he, just like that time, saves her. After the evening ended, the man said in the office that the ball had gone better than he had thought, and then turned to Noah. The assistant immediately looked up at the man, preparing to remember. Carson said that there was something that needed to be quietly found out. The prince ordered Noah to find out about the financial situation of Viscount Svendon. The assistant was surprised that the prince really wanted to know the size of the dowry. In response to this, Carson briefly replied that he would never. The man then recalled what Graham's daughter had said, that he had a nose for money, and that this could ruin their plan. He also added that, according to her, even if Svendin were to transfer to Lendilu's control, they would still be absorbed by Rossonia. After listening to the man, Noah was amazed at the nonsense he was saying, and the prince said that if they were so self-confident, then everything was going well for them. The man concluded that if they had their eye on Lendhill, they certainly had bigger plans for Svendin. Carson ordered Noah to dig through everything for information, to find out everything down to the number of candlesticks in the Svendin mansion. A team of 2 horses raced through the darkness of the night. Ines, sitting inside her, asked the maid what about her father. The maid explained that he had urgent business to attend to, so he left first, and Ines understood and agreed. Inquiring about the evening, the girl asked if the lady had danced, and upon hearing a positive answer, she was very happy, asking what family this gentleman was from. The girl was greatly surprised when Ines replied that her partner was the Count himself. So that the girl would understand exactly who she meant, she added that it was Lord Rossonia. The maid put her hands to her lips, asking if Ines was serious, to which she asked the girl if it looked like she was lying. The maid immediately began to admire that she and the Lord, dancing together, must have resembled a scene from a beautiful dream. Smiling tenderly, Ines admitted that it also seemed like a dream to her. The girl thought that after returning, she could not even imagine that such a moment would come. Pressing her hand to her chest, the girl felt her heart pounding, remembering his words about one boat. Thank God that this time she would be able to get help from Carson. Suddenly, the girl happily admitted that she had also tried and had finally found him. Ines stood transfixed when she heard that the girl had found the portrait of the Lord she had asked for. The girl asked if this was true, to which the maid said that it was difficult, and she would bring it to the girl as soon as it was delivered. Ines, continuing to smile tenderly, admitted that as soon as she received the portrait, she would put it in the Bible. Susan was pleased with how cute Ines was. Suddenly, the girl asked if the lady was going to meet Sir Joseph again if she had danced with the Lord. To this, the girl thoughtfully responded with consent. Susan immediately began to be indignant, saying that from the very beginning, she believed that this man was not right for her, and then asked if she shouldn't take this chance to end everything. In response, Ines only sighed briefly. Now that she knew all the events of her past life, dating him was out of the question. But if she left him now, she would not know what method would be used in the future. In order to know Graham's exact purpose, she had to continue dating. Looking at her reflection in the window, the girl asked herself what she should do. Suddenly, the team stopped abruptly, and the girl miraculously managed to stay in place. Worried, the maid asked Ines if she was okay, but the girl was interested in what had happened. A male voice called the girl's name, and Joseph appeared at the door, telling Ines that it seemed they had not finished speaking. Pressing her hand to her chest, the girl asked the man why she had appeared so suddenly, but he, as if not hearing the question, repeated once again that they needed to talk. The girl looked at the man with a frown. As she stood up, the girl warned Susan, who was trying to stop her, that she would be leaving for a short while. When the girl left, she turned to the man, waiting for what he would say to her. Reminding the girl that she had danced at the ball with the prince, he asked how she could do that in front of her fiancé. In response, Ines said, upset, that in that situation, she couldn't do anything either, and the man asked again. The girl began to explain that the Lord had asked for a dance, as thanks for her saving his younger sister. Looking at the angry man, she asked how she could refuse a lord, and even a prince. The man shouted sharply that the way Carson looked at her while they danced was wrong. The girl sighed, closing her eyes, reminding him that even if he was angry, he shouldn't talk about the Lord like that. The man growled furiously in response to the girl's words, after which he hit the wall of the harness with his fist with all his might. Without taking his hand off the wall, he asked the girl if this was important now. Raising her hand up, the girl told the man to calm down, saying that the Lord's gaze or anything else was just his imagination. Putting her hand on the man's fist, she asked what the problem was if her feelings for him were unchanged. Grabbing the girl's hand, Joseph said that if this was true, he wanted proof. Feeling pain in the man's grip on her hand, the girl asked how exactly he wanted her to prove her love. In response, the man demanded a kiss as a promise so that the water goddess could testify to their love. As soon as the girl heard this demand, she began to smile cheerfully. Then she simply pulled her hand out of the man's grip with force. Looking crazy, the girl asked if this was Joseph's way of testing. The man, not expecting such a reaction from the girl, stuttered and tried to object. The girl took a step towards the man, reminding him that she was still his mistress, and he was obliged to protect her honor and good name. Pointing her finger at the man, she said that instead the man appears in the middle of the road and demands a kiss as proof of love. The man immediately panicked, saying that this was not true. Joseph bowed down to the girl to beg for his forgiveness. Without raising his head, the man said that he was so excited that he made a mistake and now asks the girl to forgive him. The girl looked down at the man, saying that this time he realized his mistake, so this time she forgives him, but asks him not to disappoint her again. Joseph agreed with the girl's decision, promising that he would remember. Having walked around the man, the girl headed towards the harness. Joseph noticed that the girl dropped something. Picking up the handkerchief that the girl had dropped, he called out to her. Looking at the man, the girl said that it was dirty, so he could throw it away. The girl told the coachman to go, without hearing the man say that he had given her the scarf. Looking at the man holding the handkerchief, she thought that he was very carefully holding what she had thrown away. The girl smiled, thinking that this was very interesting. Noah handed the prince the documents, saying that this was all the information about the Svendin family's property that he had mentioned earlier. The assistant said that as far as he could see, the family had a large wool production business and a stable income from it. Noting how the prince was looking at the papers, he said that, in general, this family was on the same level as other families of ordinary viscounts. Raising his hands up, he said that the mountain range, which became the conditional border between Rassonia and Svendin, belonged to the latter. The man smiled as he looked at this item, after which he grinned. Finally, he found what Graham was craving for. The prince asked his assistant if the Svendin family would be at the hunting festival, and, upon hearing a positive answer, he happily said that he would ask him personally. Finally, the day of the hunting festival arrived. After that ball, the girl's father was very busy, but he had to solve many important issues concerning belonging to Lendl. The girl was glad that thanks to this, she was able to come to the festival instead of her father. Looking around, she tried to determine where Svendin's place was. The girl looked around. Someone called her name. Louisiana stood behind the girl, accompanied by 2 guards. The girl bowed, greeting the princess, who ran to meet Ines. The girl smiled and told Ines that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Agreeing, the girl asked in response how the girl was doing. Louisiana admitted that her brother told her that Ines would be coming to the hunting festival, so she came too. Suddenly, another person appeared next to the girl, calling the girl by name. Ines bowed again, this time greeting the Lord. Smiling at the girl, the man put his hand on her back, saying that they were here too. Turning around, the girl joyfully shouted brother. After which Carson, turning to Ines, asked if Viscount Svendin had arrived. Ines replied that her father had asked to apologize on his behalf, as he had remained in the mansion to sort out matters concerning Lendhill. Thinking that asking about the mountain range would not work, he said that he was very sorry. At that moment, Louis placed her hand on the girl's hand, asking her to come to their tent. Pointing to a nearby tent, Carson noted that the girl seemed very eager for her company, and then asked if the girl would follow them. Ines took Louis' hand and followed the man. Entering the tent and sitting down at the table, the man said that there was time before the horn sounded, so they could rest. The girl sat and enjoyed the warm and gentle sun. From time to time, a pleasant breeze blew over the girl, and the best person was sitting next to me. The girl sat with her eyes closed. Everything was so peaceful that it seemed unreal. Disturbing this peaceful picture, a woman appeared at the door of the tent and said that she knew the Lord would be here. Carson told the woman that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. After apologizing for not being able to come to the banquet that time, the Countess said that she had come to introduce Carson to a person from my family. Hearing a male voice greeting the Lord, Ines froze in horror. A man appeared at the door, put his hand to his chest, introduced himself as Jamron Winniston, and announced that he had recently been created a baronet. The girl was approaching. She was consumed by memories of a terrible past. Could this man really be Jamron? The joyful man told the Lord that he had wanted to meet him for a long time. The Countess, laughing, said that the man was giving her no peace. He wanted to meet His Highness so much. The man embarrassedly asked her not to talk like that. The girl, huddled in her chair, listened to the Countess's words about how Jamron was so sincere and pure that she was worried about how he would survive in this terrible world. During the conversation, there was a terrible crash, and the chair the girl was sitting on overturned. The girl jumped up from him, clenching her hand into a fist in anger, wondering why he was here. The girl seemed to be transported into the past, forcefully pulling her hair and throwing her head back. The man cheerfully asked if the girl knew that the more she resisted, the more it turned her on. Carson, seeing that the girl was not herself, called out to her. However, the girl did not hear him at all. She was mired in thoughts about how she considered herself finally free from this man. Ines was overcome by the next memory. Pressing his palm to the girl's cheek, the man sincerely promised to pursue her even in hell, saying that she could not escape from him. And here is this man standing in front of her again, looking at her with worry. The picture of the past and present seemed to overlap, frightening the girl even more. The girl was silent, but her eyes screamed for help with all their might. As if hearing the girl, someone approached her. Carson stood up, completely blocking the girl from those around him with his back. Then turning to the Countess and Jamarin, he doesn't think now is the right time to introduce himself. Carson ordered the Countess to take the man and leave the tent immediately. The woman stuttered, guiding the man with her hand towards the exit. Turning to Noah, he told him to take care of Louis for a while he calmed down Miss Svendin. The girl sat on the bed with her hand on her chest. It was difficult for her to breathe. Ines tried to calm down, telling herself that the current Jamarin did not know her, and therefore there was no reason to be afraid. Sitting down in front of the girl and putting his hand on her shoulders, the man asked if the girl could hear him. However, the girl seemed not to hear him. Tugging at her collar, the girl spoke indistinctly about breathing. Carson asked if it was hard for the girl to breathe. Having apologized for his rudeness, the man took off the girl, interfering things by throwing them near your feet. Calming down, the girl thanked the man, saying that everything was okay now. Leaning against the bed, the man disagreed with the girl, saying that she was shaking all over. The man still wanted to call the doctor, but the girl stopped him, grabbing his hand. A frightened Ines asked Carson not to leave. She did not want to be alone. The girl looked down sadly. She was afraid that Jamarin would look for her. Suddenly realizing what she was doing, the girl let go of the man's hand. Her head knew that Jamarin couldn't do anything to her, but her body still wouldn't obey. The girl continued to shake. She thought about the need to find out for what purpose the man came here. A mug appeared in front of the confused girl, handed over by Carson. The man told the girl to first calm down and drink some water. The girl wanted to thank the man, but he suddenly turned away in embarrassment. Trying not to look down, he said to the girl, not understanding anything, that it would be a good idea to tidy up her clothes. Realizing this, the girl blushed and covered her chest with her hands, apologizing for not having noticed it at all. While calming the girl, Carson warned that he would turn away for a moment. Getting out of bed, the girl started to say something about outerwear, but did not have time to finish. Taking the next step, the girl began to fall back. As she fell, the girl waved her hand, accidentally touching the mug in the prince's hands, which, splashing water, began to fall. The man rushed forward, addressing the girl and trying to catch her. The next moment, they were both on the bed, the girl lying down and the man hanging over her, the couple looking at each other breathlessly. Without trying to get up, the man told the girl that if she stood up with her legs so weak, she would fall again. The flushed girl explained that she didn't think she would fall, and the man, asking for forgiveness, told her to get up quickly. The couple sat up on the bed next to each other, excited. Ines noticed that the man was touching the shirt on his chest. Trying to wipe away the moisture with the cuff of her shirt, the girl apologized because it was because of her that his clothes were wet. The man asked what the girl was doing. The confused girl explained that the shirt was wet and she wanted to clean it. Looking away, Carson asked her not to do that again, otherwise he would go crazy. The girl agreed, sadly thinking that she was always getting into situations like this like some kind of fool. Looking at the man, the girl wondered why the man was so red. Carson got out of bed, telling the girl that he would prepare a change of clothes. The man began to look for something in the chest, holding the lid with his hand, after which he handed the girl some clothes, saying that they were his spare clothes and that she could change into them. The girl wanted to refuse, saying that it was fine. She understood that if she went out now in Carson's clothes, she would cause a real stir. She did not want to cause even more inconvenience. Approaching the girl, the man asked if she was going to leave the tent today. She answered no, saying that she could just throw on a jacket. Carson explained that the torn seam would still bother the girl. Continuing to hand the girl clothes, he hurried her, after which he turned away, not looking at the girl, so that it would be more comfortable for her. The girl quickly changed into the prince's black shirt and said that she was ready. Looking at the result, the man thoughtfully said that he knew that the size was too big, but it could be tidied up a bit. The man took the girl's hand in his, ignoring the girl's resistance, saying that he wanted to do it for her. Smiling, the man said that Ines often made him worry. Continuing to straighten his shirt, Carson asked to be heard. He said that he would soon leave, after which the horn would sound. The girl had to count to 200 after she heard it, and then leave. Seeing that the girl did not understand what he was talking about, he added that by that time all the men would have already gone hunting. He smiled and said that she wouldn't be bothered by other people's glances. Leaving the girl sitting on the bed, He left the tent, telling the girl to wait here for a bit, and then Ines heard a loud sound of a horn, which meant that all the men had gone hunting. However, the girl immediately remembered that Jameron was not dressed in a hunting suit, which meant he had not left with everyone else. While counting down the due amount, the girl thought that she might meet him again. After waiting a while, the girl left the tent. Hearing her name being called, the girl turned around. Louis looked at Ines with sadness. The girl smiled and crouched down in front of the girl. Ines said that it seemed that Louis was very scared, but the girl did not agree with this, saying that she was just worried if everything was okay with the girl. Laughing, Ines thanked the girl for her concern and said that everything was just wonderful with her. Standing up, she gave the girl her hand, inviting her to look at the rabbits with her. Altogether, they came to a clearing where white rabbits were jumping merrily. Looking around at everyone present, the girl noticed that more young ladies were wearing dresses than she thought. Suddenly, Ines froze, seeing something familiar. Opposite her, a girl was sitting holding a rabbit in her hands. Ines could not understand if it was Charlotte. The girl remembered how a gentle female voice woke her up, calling her by name. It was this girl who woke her up in the dark halls of Romfield. Ines remembered the girl's kindness. She hid some bread for her and gave it to Ines despite the fact that it was her share. Then the girl calmed her down, saying that everything was fine, because she heard from Casey that since yesterday she couldn't eat because of Jameron. Ines remembered how she ate this bread, crying, thanking the girl for her care. As she approached her, the girl thought that she had never considered it possible to see her again. Ines decided to start a conversation by noting that the rabbits were very cute. The girl turned to Ines and smiling said hello. Ines introduced herself by giving her name and saying that she was from the Svenden family. The girl immediately apologized, saying that she was not from around here and therefore did not recognize her, after which she gave her name, Charlotte Dropinois. Putting her hand on her neck, the girl smiled shyly, saying that yes, her last name was very unusual since her husband was a foreigner. Ines immediately remembered what she knew about her husband. This man lived for some time in Lendhill and died at the hands of Charlotte. Remembering that it was for this crime that she had ended up in Romfield, she asked the girl how she had ended up there. Charlotte said that her husband is currently working on the Rossonia Railway. Initially, he was supposed to work in the central administration, but suddenly they were transferred here. Ines asked in surprise that since her husband worked in Rossonia, then why did they live in Lendhill? Charlotte replied that she had not mentioned that they lived in Lendhill, which completely confused Ines, since the hunting festival was taking place there. The girl agreed to this, offering to sit down and talk a little. The girl sat down on a bench, watching the princess play with a rabbit under the supervision of a maid. Charlotte admitted that she was actually expecting a baby. She felt fine in the mornings, but after lunch, she felt a little heavy. Hearing this, Ines congratulated the girl. Ines listened attentively to the fact that the girl's husband was the person in charge of the railroad, and since Lord Rossonia wanted to build a route through the land of Lendhill, they lived here. The girl enthusiastically told me that when a railway is built here, it will be possible to go anywhere, but for now, the only place you can go by train is Sanskrit, but you can only see a temple there. Hearing such an enthusiastic story, she asked the girl if she liked riding the train, and the girl said yes. After which she amused Ines by saying that it was quite romantic. Getting up from the bench, she said that she would go first, because she came with the princess and could not leave her alone for long. The girl agreed with this. As she was leaving, she asked if they would be staying here for some time, and, having received a positive answer, she suggested that Charlotte meet. She was born and raised in this place, so she could help in many ways. Charlotte was amazed at the girl's kindness, saying that she was just a little bored because she had no friends. As she left, Ines said goodbye to Charlotte until they met again. This meeting made Ines sad, because perhaps this time Charlotte will go to that terrible place again, but she wants to help her avoid it. "Go to the maid," she asked where Her Highness the Princess was. The woman pointed her finger towards the forest, saying that she had just gone there to look for a white rabbit. The girl went in the indicated direction, realizing that the princess should not have gone far. While calling the girl, we saw how the man was holding her in his hands. Taking a closer look, she realized with horror that Jameron was sitting in front of the girl, smiling. The girl's eyes widened in fear for the girl. She quickly flew up to them and pushed the man, covering the girl with herself. Ines screamed, asking the man what he was doing now. Raising his hand, the man said that it seemed the princess had fallen while chasing a rabbit, and he had merely brushed the dirt off her clothes. Turning to the girl, she told her to return this way, saying that she too would follow her in a moment. The girl tried to resist, but looking into her eyes, she hurried her. Louis followed the indicated path, constantly looking back. Seeing that the girl had left, the man asked Ines why she was so afraid of him. Putting his hand to his chest, the man asked with a smile if the girl really knew him. The girl said it was impossible. The man said that from what he had heard, she was Ines Svendon. The girl remembered how many times this monster called her name. Even now, when he said the name, he seemed to lick his lips. Ines was horrified again and couldn't take her eyes off the man. The man said that no matter how much he thought about it, he heard this name for the first time today. After which he asked why he had this feeling as if the girl knew him. Seeing the man smiling, the girl asked if she really had to answer that. The man replied that the girl did not have to answer. However, after examining her, I noticed that the clothes she was wearing were clearly not women's. Ines was silent, waiting for what else this man would say. The next moment, the man, smiling, leaned closer to the girl. Still smiling, he ingratiatingly asked if she belonged to the Lord. Trying to move away from the man, the girl took a step back, not noticing the pebble. Having stepped on it, the girl was unable to keep her balance and fell hard backwards. She fell so awkwardly that the stone not only tore her shirt, but also left a scratch. The man rushed towards the girl in amazement. He looked upset, but the girl knew he was laughing when he told her she should have been more careful. The man began to extend his hand towards the girl. Her eyes widened in fear again, and she mentally asked not to touch her. The girl huddled tightly, hugging herself with her arms, waiting for the man to touch her. However, the man did not touch her, and the girl opened her eye, looking around. She did not understand why he did nothing. The man, still smiling and holding out his hand to her, told her to take it and rise, because she was the daughter of a viscount's family, and it would be bad if someone saw her like that. Ines repeated in her mind that she was the daughter of a viscount's family. She grabbed the ground in her fist in anger. It was true, she was not Romfield's prisoner now, and the viscount's daughter and the baronet were not equal in status. Looking at the man, the girl thought with fury that he was just a non-entity who had barely entered the realm of the aristocracy, and he would never be able to touch her. Looking at the man, she clearly and firmly commanded him to take a step back. The man, not expecting this, stopped smiling. Holding her hand, Ines stood up from the ground. She asked the man if he was really a nobleman, to which the man asked, confused, what she was talking about. Ines said that according to rumors, the man had only recently received the title of baronet, and perhaps for that reason, he seemed to have no manners. Looking intently at the man, she said that she fell and hurt herself because of his unpleasant words and actions. The man tried to object, saying that he did not push her. The girl agreed with this, but asked why he moved towards her so threateningly in a place where there was no one. Jameron tried to explain, but the girl interrupted him, saying that the same thing had happened to Her Highness the Princess earlier. Moving towards the man, she asked if the girl had turned to him for help first. The man replied no, but said that he simply could not pass by a person in trouble. The girl said that without their permission, one cannot touch members of the imperial family. After which she added that if a person of the opposite sex did this, he would be punished for insulting the imperial family. After looking at the man, she said that it was his hand. Not understanding the girl, the man nervously jerked his hand. The girl explained that she meant that he could simply lose her. In response, the man shouted that he simply had a good heart. Ines interrupted him again, saying that since he had become an aristocrat, he should control his heart and learn manners. Putting her hand on her head, the girl complained that recently anyone was becoming a nobleman, and that this was an unnecessary headache. The man clenched his fist, and it was clear he was trying to suppress his anger. Looking at this, the girl thought that he was trying to restrain himself when he heard something like this. Yes, this man was one of those people who are ready to torture to death those who get on their nerves. He was especially obsessed with her, frightening and cruel. However, the person standing in front of her now was just a skinny guy with a servile expression on his face. Suddenly the man asked if everything depended on the girl's attitude, after which he asked her not to blame him for nothing. Looking at him firmly, the girl suggested going out and asking the others. Ines asked the man what he was doing in a place where only girls had gathered, while all the other men had gone into the forest to hunt. In response, he turned his head to the side and remained silent. The girl asked another question. Did he really have nothing else to say, or did he simply not have the ability to do so? In conclusion, she added that in any case, he should only hope that the princess would not raise the issue regarding what had happened. The man looked down as the girl spoke about how this was not a question that could be resolved by her silence alone. After which, turning around, the girl said that it was time for her to go. She forced herself to walk slowly and calmly, not showing the man how nervous she was. Having moved far enough away from the man, the girl looked back, checking whether the man had followed her. The road was completely empty, which meant she was safe. Exhaling, Ines sank to her knees near the tree, exhausted. The girl promised herself that in the future, no man would be able to touch her with even a finger. She was so deep in her thoughts that she didn't immediately hear her name being called. Carson ran quickly towards her, continuing to call her name. The girl stood up, not believing her eyes. She did not expect that he would come running to her aid.